Will not be here this evening. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Chris Baird, would you lead us?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes. I would entertain a motion to postpone the approval of minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second? A motion by Councilman Wells to postpone the approval of minutes for March 26th, April 3rd, April 17th, May 1st, May 15th, and May 16th. The motion was seconded by Evan Clapper. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of postponing the minutes. Passes 5-0. Ratification of payments of bills.
I move we pay our bills, total bills, $1,846,841.98. Total payroll, $227,089.93 to a total bills and payroll, $2,073,931.91.
Motion by Councilman Wells to approve the bills, seconded by Evan Clapper. Discussion. Seeing none, I will have a roll call vote. Greg Halliday.
Aye.
Jalen Hawks.
Yes.
Evan Clapper.
Aye.
Curtis Wells.
Aye.
Mary McGann. Aye. General Council reports and future considerations. Greg Halliday.
Who got it at the beginning?
This time I don't have any reports. The historical preservation, Evan Clapper filled in for me. So that was the only thing at the end of the month. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Jalen Hawks. We're not used to this. This is the first time having
this. This is throwing me.
We changed the order of when the council reports are, so it's throwing people off. Yes.
I attended the Four Corners Community Behavioral Health Board. The main thing, we will be looking at their plan to provide treatment for the 2019 year during this meeting. The only other major thing is they're trying to figure out how to build their new clubhouse, community center, their new facilities. The big gym significantly over where they thought it would. They're toying with different ideas right now. One would be maybe not do employee housing at this time. Everything is on the table. I'm going to let Curtis report on the UDOT transportation study meeting because he does such a great job. Will that work for you, Curtis?
Sure.
Thank you. Budget Advisory Board is awesome. It is progressing nicely. You will see the results of some of the work we've been doing on that board today. During this meeting, there are a couple of items for approval. And then I filled in for Rory at the airport board meeting yesterday. And that was really interesting, and I liked it a lot. I did learn that we fly airplanes, we do not drive them. I took a lot of ribbing for using the wrong terminology. And yeah, things are going great guns out there. Judd passed around, I don't have it. He passed around a graphic that shows what they made in their first month of operation this year, which was essentially 20% of everything they made the entire year last year. So that, that's 2 months. That's double the revenue that's coming in. So look for more great stuff. There are 1 or 2 airport agenda items on today as well. That's all I have.
let's see, I had the pleasure of meeting with the library board this past week. There's some continuing review of policies there. And it was a good report from the director there. Met with the mosquito abatement crew yesterday, and the silver lining of it being such a dry year is there's not a lot of mosquitoes, so that's nice. They have discovered mosquitoes in new places, like in the sewer, so their operations will likely be expanding. They kind of gave the head nod to joining the CRA for the community reinvestment, and more budget discussions around future needs. I met with the EMS board, who is awaiting their authorization to actually be a special service district from the state, and so a lot of talk about preparing for that transition, and still kind of aiming for January 1st of the official divorce date, as Curtis likes to call it. And met with the budget meeting a couple times since last time we all met, the budget advisory board, and we have a few things on the agenda from them for this meeting, so we can kind of talk about that later. And just some future considerations. Heard back from Rick Bailey in regards to having the trailer-mounted sign that is used during Jeep Safari and during Memorial Day weekend to help educate visitors, and specifically in regards to educating folks about current fire restrictions, so that folks coming from out of town can realize those dangers and play it safe. And Rick's going to be talking with the guys from the state about where the best place to put that would be, since folks are kind of coming into town from 3 different directions, where it might be the most effective. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Yes, Curtis.
May 23rd through the 25th, I attended the Western Interstate Region Conference in Idaho, which is a National Association of Counties split up into 2, and that's the western half. And there were we attended meetings about affordable housing in the West. We looked at some of the planning that they're doing in Sun Valley, Idaho, with some of the fire control, and lots of public lands focused discussions. It was a good conference in a beautiful place, and they have plenty of water, which made me jealous. May 29th, I attended a meeting at the Water District building with San Juan County and UDOT, and they called it the Spanish Valley Discussion, and the focus of the meeting is between UDOT and San Juan County to do corridor planning as far as Highway 191. So as development is anticipated in the San Juan County development, the Moab South as they're calling it, they're trying to identify what access points to Highway 191 they'd like and begin those discussions. And I was just invited to come and sit in, and it's good to see those discussions starting to happen between Grand County and San Juan County as far as planning in that area. May 30th, I sat in on a budget advisory board meeting, and like it was mentioned earlier, we're going to have some agenda items, and it was just good to sit in, and it was nice to see that board work, and everyone's doing really good work, and I just really appreciate it. And I think as that moves forward, that's a real benefit to the county and our fiscal planning. So it was great to participate in that. Later that day on the 30th, we had a UDOT meeting that Jalen mentioned, and really it's the tail end of this first round of hotspot funding. And so when we started the process, we identified a list of projects that we would like to have funded by the UDOT hotspot funding exercise, and it's been known that the city, that UDOT awarded the community some up to $10 million for downtown parking planning and parking structures, and another project that surfaced during the prioritization of potential projects was a Moab bypass. And so UDOT budgeted, I think it was either $150,000 to look at concepts, and they appropriated the $150,000 to hire a consultant, a firm named Fair and Peers, to analyze what that may look like and just do a very high-level conceptual study. And so the meeting on the 30th was their findings, and some of the points, the data from their study was that 18-wheeler traffic on an annual basis is approximately 36% of the traffic on Main Street, and about another roughly 30% is cut-through traffic. So non-tourism, non-local traffic on Highway 191 is approximately 60-ish%. And so that's a pretty significant figure. There were some cost estimates for what a potential bypass may cost, depending on noise mitigation. It could run anywhere from $75 million to north of $150 million. So nothing to get too excited about. It's just a conceptual study. You know, if UDOT decided to place this project on the state priority list, you know, this thing's probably anywhere from 5 to 7 to 10 years down the line. But I do think it's good that the state is acknowledging that we have congestion and issues that are due to tourism, and they've played a heavy role in promoting tourism, and so it's good to see them, in my opinion, look to help mitigate that. It's typical for UDOT to spend, you know, they spend billions of dollars on transportation projects in the Wasatch Front, and so to have that kind of conceptual study in a fifth-class county, I think is a pretty neat thing. So next steps in that process is, of course, the city and the county would have to do some planning and you know, get some consensus from the public and buy-in to incorporate a bypass into, you know, our local planning documents, and that project would have to get on the state priority list, and then at that point it's in UDOT's hands. So we'll have updates as that develops, if it does develop, and proceed. May 31st was the Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments meeting that we held here in the Grand County Council chambers. Some of the highlights from that meeting: we did have a local business that received some financing from one of the grant programs we do, so that was good. One of our RCIB project that went through the approval of the board, the Southeastern Utah AOG board, was the Castle Valley Fire District well project. And if I'm correct, Greg, they're purchasing land where they have water rights so that they can access the well, I believe.
Yes, it's a agricultural well, so it puts out really high volume water.
Yeah.
And it's in place, it's there. In fact, the town and the fire department have used it in the past.
Yeah.
So the land came up for sale. It's just land with the well. That's all it's there.
So the good news was that of the 4 counties that comprise the AOG, that project was prioritized first of the other counties' projects, so that was good. We had a visit from Senator Dave Hinkins at the AOG meeting. He didn't bring any big news or you know, substantive updates, but our mayor did talk to him about a housing board, and there was some discussion with him, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, are you going to talk at all, Ruth, about the retreat?
No, not necessarily. Okay.
Well, anyway, we did have a council retreat on the 16th, the day after our council meeting, and I thought it was very productive. We did some prioritizing as to what we want to have accomplished in a year, 2 years, 5 years, some really nice long-term planning that happened, and you know, I was very excited about that.
I could add to that, actually.
Yes.
The Budget Advisory Board has me taking the minutes of their meetings, and they have filled out the financial section in terms of deliverable details and have looked at timelines, whether those dates really work or not. We meet tomorrow morning, or they meet tomorrow morning, and we'll be just looking at it one more time. So one of those 3 pillars, financial, is really coming along great. The other 2 pillars, infrastructure and planning was one of them. And right this second, I can't remember the other one. But Political. That's
Yeah.
why I can't remember. Yeah, so there hasn't been any movement on the other 2.
But the financial goal, that's really good news.
Yeah.
That's very good news. Thank you. I also attended the Moab Area Watershed Partnership Plan, and they talked a lot about what Utah's doing right now to figure out who has water rights, what water rights are being dropped, so that we really know how many water rights are out there and how they're planned. I have a great big document, if anybody's interested, on the principles of water rights. In Utah, water rights, and in most western states, is built on the principle of prior appropriations. And the principle holds that the first person to deviate water from a source and put it to beneficial use has the right to keep using that water. And so that's a big thing, that's common in most western states. And in Utah, water is a public resource, not a private property right. So there's a lot, if anybody's interested in this explanation of Utah water rights law, I'd be happy to email it to you or make a copy and give to you. So I did that. Then I went down Desolation Gray Canyon for 7 days. I was off the grid. That was wonderful. That was very delightful. And then attended the airport grand opening, which was wonderful. We had our Congressman Albrecht was there, and Congresswoman Watkins was there. We had people from SkyWest and the different companies that helped build it. UDOT was there, had a nice turnout. We got to even go back into the secure area to look at the different artwork. The artwork that Karen Guzman Newton organized is just spectacular. If you have not been out to the airport, you need to do that just as a council member, just because we have spent so much money and put so much energy into it. It's important to know. I called it Miracle on May 1st because we succeeded in 119 days what most places take years to accomplish. I mean, it's pretty exciting. We got a letter from the governor in this incredible folder telling us, as the governor of our great state of Utah, let me congratulate you on the grand reopening of Canyonlands Field Airport and the Bob Dollar Terminal. This site is important to Utah in helping transport people to and from this beautiful area. So Governor Herbert is recognizing that what was accomplished by Judd and the airport board and many, many people was amazing. So that's what I have to report. Thank you. We are now moving to a council administrator report.
Did you want to catch elected official reports? I think we have one.
Oh, we do have
At
an
least
elected
one.
official report? Oh, I'm sorry. I've always asked you and you said you didn't have anything to report, so I skip you and then you have something to say.
Just trying to keep everyone on their toes.
Yes, you
Be
succeeded.
unpredictable. Yeah, sure. Do you want to? I'll come and sit at the table here with Don here. So as some of you probably know, we have a new district court judge for the 7th district that will be confirmed by the Senate shortly. And that is the esteemed Don Torgerson, and who is our public defender, as you know, for many years, and has done excellent service not only for our county and worked tirelessly, but also for San Juan counties and Emery and Carbon for quite a few years. Don's talents have been put to use for the public, and we're certainly grateful to him for his service. And we're certainly grateful for his service he's about to embark on as our district court judge. As everyone knows, or most people know, Judge Anderson is retiring July 1. And so there's significant spaces to fill that Dawn has filled for quite some time. And so we are here today to let you know that we have a solution to our public defender that we need right away. And to talk about future Judge Don's character, he could have just said, hey, I've got this new gig, and all you counties figure it out. But he hasn't done that. He's actually taken a lot of steps and put in a lot of hard work to fill in those holes that he has left vacated. And so with the public defender contract, the language is that it can be assignable. And so Don has come up with an individual to be our public defender that he's going to sign his contract to, with, of course, the council's sign off on that. And that individual appeared in court today. I'll let Don talk about him a little bit if he likes to. But he was in court today getting assigned cases where Judge Anderson is assigning multiple cases to this new public defender. And he certainly comes highly recommended. And so, so I have a document that I'll submit later to the chair and to the clerk for their signatures to essentially ratify that contract being reassigned. So we wanted to make you aware of that. And then the other portion of it is the DCFS parental defense part of the contract as well. And my wife has agreed to take that contract. And so that contract as well is assignable with the council's. I always Rudy, you know how I've never liked those. Hopefully that was Dawn's best side. At any rate, so we have those documents. Dawn has been good enough to prepare those transfer documents, and so we'll submit them to the chair for signature and, of course, the clerk. And so we will have a new judge here shortly, and we're very excited about it. I want to personally thank Mr. Torgensen for his hard work and his endless hours and service and intelligence in serving our county and the public and in protecting the constitution of those people he represents. And I think the county can be very grateful to him, and he certainly was in high demand throughout many counties, and it's obvious as our future judge. It's very telling about what caliber of person we have working for us. So I think the council has been aware of that over the years. So I'll let Don say what he likes about the new public defender and anything he feel like we haven't covered.
So those are super nice things. The public defender, the contract allows assignment with the consent of this body. My concern was really a couple of things. Number one, I was concerned for my clients just opening up for bid and putting them into a situation where they're not represented in interim and where they don't really know what caliber of representation they're going to end up with. Concerned for the county because my caseloads are up quite significantly over the past year, about 30% overall. I don't know if that's a trend or if it's an anomaly. I hope it's an anomaly, but I think it would benefit the county to assign my contract, because it is a fixed rate contract, to see if that works itself out before it comes up again in about 2 years. The other issue we've got is there's not, right now we kind of have a low number of attorneys practicing in our district. And so it's really been kind of hard to find people who are interested and available in a place where they can take these contracts over. Price is losing 6 attorneys this year, and either mostly to retirement. But that's 6 out of about 12 or 13 practicing attorneys. And so and in Grand County there are 3 of our potentially available attorneys are running for county attorney, which removes them from any ability to take over any of these contracts or perform this kind of work. And so, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. And so we're in a situation really where I think it's important that we have quality representation, where the county's a little bit protected and where we can kind of jump in and get this moved over as quickly as possible. I think if the pending Senate confirmation, if Senate approves me, I'll be on the bench sometime in July. And we were in a unique situation here where we had two really very serious felony child sex abuse cases that required conflict counsel. And there was nobody in the community that could take that over because all of the connections kind of conflicted everybody out. And so this attorney that I'd like to assign my contract to was available to take those cases. And so that's why he was here today, was to accept those conflict appointments. But Judge Anderson, not to be too, I guess, presumptuous, but I think hoping to have an order of transition, appointed him conditionally to some cases as well, to say, he'll either cover those or if this body approves, he'll take those over permanently. He is someone who I went to law school with. I've known him a very long time. His practice is primarily criminal defense. He's out of Spanish Fork, part of a larger firm. They have 5 attorneys in their office. So they have resources and coverage to be able to, I think, maintain a standard of practice that is important for this kind of work. To make sure it's a high quality representation, and have enough staff to process the caseload and to make sure that the clients are well represented. His practice is primarily criminal defense. It probably will be almost all criminal defense if these are assigned. He does and has done that for a long time. So I'm familiar with him. I know that he does good work, and given sort of the very few attorneys that we have available, I think it's a fortunate thing that we have somebody who is ready, willing, and able, can step in and take these contracts over without the county incurring some huge additional expense to bring other people in. I suspect within 2 or 3 years from now, things might be different, but at least in the near term, I think these 2 assignments are good ideas. Andrew's wife, Autumn, obviously you know her. She's very,
What was the name?
Autumn, Andrew's wife. She's very competent, she's very capable, she does a lot of juvenile court work anyway, so for her it's this is work that she's good at, that she already does a lot of, to step in and take the DCFS cases over. So my request would be the council approve the assignment. Both of these attorneys have agreed to uphold the terms of the contracts through their remaining term. I believe the criminal contract's about 2 years left on it, and the juvenile court contract has about 6 months left on it, with options, I think, to renew. So that'd be my request, to try and make this transition as orderly as possible. And I've prepared the documents to make that happen. We just need the consent of the council.
I didn't hear the name of the person that was taking over. You're suggesting?
Aaron Wise would take over the criminal, and Autumn Fitzgerald would take over the
Yeah, I heard that. I didn't
criminal
hear Aaron
defense.
Wise. I don't know if I missed it or. Question. Thank you for your service, for all the.
Yeah, congratulations.
And congratulations.
I'm excited to still work here. I enjoy working in Grant County. So.
We're still making him work for us all, so. But we are certainly fortunate to have someone of Don's caliber to be our district judge, who's fair, honest, and has the characteristics that we can all be proud of having as our judge. So we're very fortunate. Thanks to everyone who put in their good work.
Yes, I do appreciate the support I've got down here, and I do enjoy working here. So
Thank you.
anyway, Andrew has that paperwork, so
Okay, thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
thanks.
It's funny, I've always asked her. Okay, I've always asked you if you had anything. Well, so no.
One time in 8 years, I finally came up with something.
Well, I've only been on for how many months? Okay, council administrator.
Let's see. So I've attended some job interviews. We're trying to replace the retiring planning and zoning administrator, and we had just the right candidate, and unfortunately that did not work out for the candidate. Although the candidate actually wanted to be here, but is going on to other bigger and better things in his life. So we're kind of back to square one on that. Although we're not having to re-advertise, we do have some applications that we'll be looking at when Zachariah gets back into the country in the next week or so. Other than that, we've had a second firm we've looked at for the on-call engineering contracts. So I've been part of those interviews and hope to have something for council recommendation this council meeting. Other than that, I just want to say with regard to the airport grand reopening, it was really quite a grand reopening. I think it could have been better attended, but it was a lot of great a lot of gratitude, I think, for a lot of different organizations, and so I don't want to rehash that. Thank you, Mary, for your part in the speech and the ribbon cutting, but really my purpose in even saying anything is just to, again, thank Judd Hill, our airport director. He probably stepped out, right? And to support him as best you can on the agenda items today so that we can have a really high-functioning airport out there. We're struggling. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Department reports? Do we have any department reports? Did Jeff have anything he... Oh, okay. Citizens to be heard. This is the portion of the agenda where citizens have the opportunity to talk on an item that is not on the agenda. If you want to talk on an item that's on the agenda, fill out one of these forms and turn them in. Otherwise, if you would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, this is your opportunity, and you have 3 minutes. Come up and state your name. And would you have time?
Yep.
Hi, all. Thanks. I
Name?
have, my name's Kylie Miller. Sorry.
We know.
I live here. I had already written in about the highway signs when you had said yours, but I also wanted to add that I emailed San Juan County and our representatives, and Albrecht did respond to me, and he was on board, and he actually said that it would be a good idea to put fire ban on the highway, not only the UDOT signs, but like the big overpass signs and stuff. So I just want to let you know that he also got involved with that conversation, and that was really, really good. I'm going to trip through this because I'm nervous, but I'm going to do my best. First off, thank you. I appreciate you all being willing to serve our community, and I understand that you all are busy. You've received many emails from me regarding tourism and the situation with Mill Creek and Powerhouse Lane. I hear new signs will be installed, which will hopefully help with illegal parking, but will just increase the impacts on the Powerhouse neighborhood. Access to Mill Creek needs to be moved to Potato Salad. TRT funds should be allocated for infrastructure. Limit the cars allowed in to no more than 50. No buses, RVs, or trucks and trailers. It makes no sense to allow continued access up Powerhouse Lane, which is a dead-end road. Sand Flats takes over, collects the fee. Then Mill Creek Canyon can be managed and regulated, because right now it's a free-for-all. Unfettered tourism is tearing this community apart. We need to use those TRT advertising dollars to educate visitors. They need to be taught to respect the area and the residents who live here. What use are rules and regulations if the public isn't aware of them? A good example of this is the fire ban. Let's get some signs. Memorial Weekend on Powerhouse Lane and in Mill Creek Canyon was off the rails. Hundreds of cars and 1,000 people or more went up there. 6 strangers were on my front porch seeking shade. Someone decided to park in my driveway. Imagine the environmental impacts on that sensitive ecosystem. We as a community need to take drastic and radical measures to protect ourselves and the public lands surrounding us. Please let's not kick any more cans down the road. Mill Creek Canyon deserves better. This community deserves better. And so do the public lands that we all love so much. Thanks for your time, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for your contacting other people other than us. I really appreciate that. It's good for them to hear that. Okay. Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? Okay, we will move to our next agenda. Agency report. Delivery of Utah Division of Wildlife Resources annual PILT payment and update of activities. Chris Wood, Regional Supervisor, Utah Division of Wildlife Resources.
That's
Thank
me.
you, Chris.
Good afternoon. I come here every year and deliver our PILT payment. I'm a little late this year. We had some new people in our Salt Lake office that are that process this paperwork. So I'm glad to be here. I am delivering our PILT payment. Our PILT is payment in lieu of taxes, and so as an agency, we own land in Grand County. We own about 1,200 acres of land in the South Book Cliffs. It's called our Nash Wash Wildlife Management Area. Also, it used to be called the Cunningham Ranch. And so that's 1,200 acres. And then we also own about half of the Matheson Wetlands Preserve, the Moab Slough. We own half, the Nature Conservancy owns half, but together we manage it. We co-manage it as one wetland. And so I will be delivering a check today in the amount of $4,358.49, and that covers that PILT that we owe for those lands. The money that we use to pay this PILT payment is from sportsmen. Our agency is funded by fishermen and hunters almost entirely. Not, 80, 90-something% of our funds come from sportsmen, hunting and fishing dollars. And so the land that we own, whether it be the Matheson Preserve or the Nash Wash Wildlife Management Area, we manage for the public and for public use. We value public lands as well. We consider these lands open for hunting and fishing and recreationists and bird watchers, hikers, a variety of uses. And so this land is, we hope the citizens of Grand County use these lands and appreciate these lands and respect these lands. Maybe just a quick update on the Matheson wetland. We are hoping to have a prescribed fire in the wetland this fall. We've done a prescribed fire. I've been in the region for 12 years. We've done it twice now, so this will be a third time in the last 12 years. We haven't had one in 5 or 6 years probably though, so we're working with other agency partners to implement that prescribed fire, probably October, November-ish. We're also working on a project with our partners to breach some of the dike on the north end of the preserve to allow water to come into the wetland, and then it's an endangered fish project for the razorback sucker, to allow the fish larvae to come into the wetland and then hatch and then drain back out. And so we're working with engineers, and we're in the permitting phase of that project, but we're hoping to maybe break some ground this fall as well. So that's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I can try to answer them. If not, I'll just hand you this check.
Questions? Anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Presentation and discussion regarding proposed high-density development overlay. Caitlin Myers. And JD.
Yeah. So I'm going to actually give JD most of the time for this presentation, but I can give you a little bit of background. About a year ago, we came to the council and did open houses on this high-density development overlay, and officially did public houses in, I think, August or September of last year, and took public comments for a long time. JD's been really involved with that process and took a lot of those public comments, and since then have also done the assured housing feasibility study. So we've taken those two things and have gone to our planning commission and really hashed more of this density development overlay idea out. And so this is just a brief update on where we're at with our planning commission. So JD's going to walk through a story map that he's made to explain to the public and to you about kind of our process in developing this and where we're at. And if you would like to talk through policies that are in the packet, we can talk about that afterwards as well. So if you have any initial questions, if not, I'm going to let JD go through the story map to explain the overlays.
Hi. So this website that we're going to be looking at right now, a link was provided in your council packet, and it is also available for viewing on our department page under current and upcoming projects. So as we go onto the open house phase, we'll be having those meetings directly, but this is kind of a tool to use to kind of allow community members to see what we're doing without, if they're not able to attend the meeting, and also to submit feedback. As Caitlin said, we're working on high-density development overlays to use in areas of San Juan County. Basically, super brief summary, we have a problem providing affordable housing to workers and residents in the county. And as a possible solution to this, we're proposing in selected areas of Spanish Valley, allowing denser than zoned housing, provided that the developer deed restricts that housing for full-time county residents. So just kind of brief context of the problem. These next few slides are taken from the feasibility study that we commissioned from BAE Urban Economics, looking at the housing issues in our county. And it just kind of shows different households representing different income levels, and just that for basically anyone above the median income level, it's very difficult to find housing. Even at 80% of our area income level, there were no houses sold in the last year that were affordable to that income level. And if you look at, even looking at manufactured homes, slightly more affordable, but still a problem. And apartments, again, still better there, but there's definitely still a shortage. So in light of these issues, we are proposing a policy that would basically both increase housing stock overall and try to focus specifically on lower income affordable housing. So the proposal, there was a map also featured in your packet, but these are the areas that we would be focusing on, where in these areas, developers would be allowed to construct housing denser than currently allowed, provided that 80% of the units in a development were deed restricted only to go to primary residents. And as an incentive-based policy, developers would have to come in and apply for this. It wouldn't just automatically be free for all in these areas. There would definitely still be a process to increase the zoning. Yes?
Sorry. So when you say deed restricted to primary residents, does that also put a cap on how much they can charge for them?
That, it does not. We were kind of counting basically on the income level of people that live here, basically provided that cap. Theoretically, if they were required to sell to people that live here full time, they would have to make it affordable to people that live here full time, or else they wouldn't be able to sell the units. So we were hoping that would serve somewhat as a cap.
Yeah, that was one of the big changes between the first policy. I guess I should explain that. So originally we had two policies. We had one for commercial and one for housing, and we have done away with the high density commercial because the county is now looking at an assured housing policy. And so the feasibility study showed that it would work, an assured housing policy would work for commercial development but wouldn't for residential, which is why we are going forward with this incentive-based policy. But one of the biggest changes in the policy that we're showing you tonight versus a year ago is that the affordable housing requirements or incentives are now taken out of this. And so additional incentives can be provided, and that's already kind of outlined in the land use code for affordable housing. But as far as this policy is concerned, it's just deed restricted to primary residency.
Basically, residential development, their profit margins were low enough that if we required them to provide affordable income base, that they might not actually develop. So this is a way to try to make sure that development actually happened while also providing for local residents. So shown here are the different densities and maximum heights that would be associated with these different areas, trying to accommodate the different neighborhoods and try to provide for the different conditions that are located within this area. And kind of how this would work legally, these overlays would be part of updating the formal land use plan and would be implemented into our county land use code if they were passed. The actual process for a developer utilizing these, they would come into our office and basically just make sure that they understood the requirements and the opportunities that were provided by this policy. They would submit all of the standard development application and documents, along with their plans and documentations for deed restricting it and maintaining primary residency for those units. The development would be reviewed by our office and make sure that it complies, and would go before the planning commission and the council to be approved. And then the deed restrictions would be overseen by the Grand County, or the Housing Authority of Southeastern Utah, to make sure that the units were complying with those deed restrictions. Let's see. There we go. So these next few slides are just kind of showing how the locations of this area was arrived at. Basically just looking at a variety of different conditions within this area and trying to find the best locations for this policy. This first map is just showing current zoning, just to provide context. And then looking at, sorry, some of that's a little difficult to read, but proximity to Moab, proximity to US 191 and Spanish Valley Drive, the current zoning density within these locations, the locations of the multifamily residential overlay, the basically neighborhood character, which basically we use to represent a parcel size within these neighborhoods to kind of show the existing conditions there, the elevations of different areas, the slopes, and basically all of these are kind of taken together to look at how developable an area might be for these higher density housing, and then where all of those previous factors were overlaid to kind of give an idea of, when all of them were taken together, what might be the ideal locations for these. So this map kind of served as the basis for drawing the actual boundaries that you see on the policy map. And then the last section of this presentation, kind of the question that a lot of people in the community would have is, why is my neighborhood included within this policy? Basically, like we said, because it's a voluntary incentive-based program, not all of the parcels located in these areas are going to develop at these maximum densities, and most likely the majority of them are not going to choose to utilize this. So in light of that, we want to basically provide the broadest, make the incentives accessible to the broadest array of land so that we can actually get this denser housing. And kind of one of the primary objections that we heard when we were drafting the policy was I bought into my neighborhood wanting it to stay as it is right now. And kind of as a response to that, we wanted to look at the kind of how excluding existing developed neighborhoods would affect this policy. So using kind of the density of housing. So lots smaller than 2 acres. If you said those are existing neighborhoods and took them out of the policy because people wouldn't want their neighborhood to change, you remove parcels and you arrive at this. If you increase the amount of the size of a parcel to 3 acres that you would consider like an actual cohesive neighborhood, you pare it down more and arrive at this. If you look at within this area, the parcels that don't currently have a structure on them that would kind of be most accessible for future development, these are the parcels that you're still left with. And then if you did the same paring down by area, getting rid of the 2-acre neighborhood parcels or the 3-acre parcels, you arrive at this selection of parcels. So basically the whole point in that process is to say, because we can't make the people that own these large lot undeveloped parcels develop high density housing, we want to kind of make it an option for as broad an array of people as possible. And just the idea that because it's incentive based, providing the opportunity for as much of the community as possible to solve this problem of affordable housing is kind of the approach that we're taking. So kind of providing the widest opportunity for people to develop more housing in the valley. And in light of all of that policy, we do at the end of this presentation provide an opportunity for feedback. So when we do our open houses, we'll certainly have feedback there, but people can also go to the website and access a survey from the site. But they can pinpoint a location and just provide their feedback on this, or contact our office to provide their input. So that's kind of where we are now. In the next few months, we're going to be working on bringing this back before the public. This website is live, but we will be working on having open houses and kind of bringing this back before the public, and then hopefully in the next few months coming back before y'all with a final policy. That's all I have.
Questions?
Actually, just a quick question. The link that is written on the agenda summary, it looks like it's one of those tiny URLs. Is it the same? Gives us the same?
Yes.
Okay, and it'll change because it's live?
No.
So the public has that?
Yes,
link.
the public can access it right now.
That's actually how I pulled it up today.
Okay,
So.
perfect, thank you.
How confident are we in the 80% deed? That's the deed restricted limit, 80% of the units?
That's the minimum.
That's the minimum, yeah. How confident are you at this point that after that minimum, that economic viability is still intact for development in those areas? It just seems, back of the napkin, that's a lot of units.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it's not going to be capped to affordability. You know, all of these markets can be developed to market rate.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's up to the developer or the realtor to sell those units. You know, so we totally removed the affordability aspect of this and said, as long as you're not selling it to second homeowners or, you know, look, we're still trying to figure out some of the legal aspects of the deed restriction and what defines primary residency.
So you're not going to cap the value of the unit with a deed restriction?
No, so we are totally giving it out to, the market will kind of do what it does.
So you're deed restricting it to a certain criteria?
Right, so right now we are only planning on deed restriction to primary residency.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
And in the policy right now, that means homeowners need to be here 9 months minimum out of the year, and renters have to rent for at least 6 months.
Makes sense.
So if the homeowner doesn't live here but they're renting it out, would that qualify?
Yeah, as long as it's not short-term rentals, as long as the people that they're renting it out to are here for at least 6 months.
One of the concerns I have is, the folks that are, they have properties that they're renting as a long-term rental, but they're really just renting them as a nightly. So they'll have people come in and stay for a week. I know there's still a lot of that going on. This seems like the kind of thing that someone like that would really pounce on, because it's basically, say if they built a property to a maximum density at 25 units per acre at 35 feet tall, they would look at that and think that's one big juicy nightly rental complex for me. So we still have to manage those things, and the city's ramped up their enforcement, but this will obviously take place out of the city. But looks like you guys are doing good work. I appreciate it.
To that final point, I would just say that that will ultimately fall on whomever administers the deed restriction, because the housing authority will have to maintain that relationship with the homeowner or the renter to ensure that primary residency is still being maintained.
So I appreciate that. Let me ask you, to what level is the housing authority currently managing those dynamics? Because they have their deed restricting currently. Are they currently kind of in a somewhat enforcement or like monitoring role with their deed restricted?
And right now, the housing authority only manages what they have. They haven't really. They're working on creating a position to administer deed restrictions outside of the ones that the housing authority has developed. So they're working on a program where if someone privately wants to put a deed restriction on it, the housing authority can manage that. So they're still working on their own policies for that. So we're kind of working in conjunction with each other to figure out how all that's going to work.
Good questions. Any other? Very nice presentation. Thank you.
Yeah,
I learned
thanks,
a lot.
guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, presentation on recommended compensation methodology. Chris Baird, Budget Officer. 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Hopefully it'll be done sooner than that, huh?
20 to 30 minutes is what it says on here.
30 minutes. All right. Chris Barrett, Grant County's Budget Officer. This presentation is going to be a little more detailed explanation of the salary studies methodology that we initiated last year.
Excuse me, do you think it would be a good idea to give Chris one of these mics that aren't being used? Would that make it easier for you, Chris?
Do what?
If you had a mic that you didn't have to worry about talking into.
Can you hear me all right? Just talking.
No, you can't hear. That mic does not work that well.
Maybe.
You could take Rory's. We have Rory's here. Or Patrick's.
I'll switch it out. You mean?
I got one down.
Test. Does this one work? Get Pro. Can you hear me? Is that better? Talk it up.
You can turn it up.
Which channel
Turn
are
it
you
up.
on?
Turn it up.
Just the dial.
Guys, get me all flustered. Is this the volume right here?
Yeah, that little dot.
It's all the way up already. All right, I'll just speak up.
There you did. That was good.
Okay, and so when I was investigating the methodology and trying to figure it out for myself, I began to realize that a lot of the people, or most everybody really didn't exactly understand how the methodology was feeding back. How the methodology worked and the implications of it. And so I think in your packet I included a flowchart that I made to try to help explain it. It's really difficult to try to explain these things with the spreadsheets, is how they were originally presented to you. And so I try to make a flowchart just to explain it. The beginning of the process starts with am I feeding back now? starts with two different fundamental elements. The first element is the raw market data that we got from Mike Swallow, which is all of the different positions that he's aggregated over the years for various positions that are similar to the positions that we have in our county. And then the second starting point was the self-evaluation of job value that all the employees in the county filled out for themselves. And those two things come together to create a statistical chart, so to speak. You couldn't really see it in the spreadsheet so much, and so I charted it out in a graphical way, and I'll go down to that in just a second. But one of the initial things that really needs to happen is to vet that market data, make sure it's accurate, make sure that all of the different positions that Mike Swallow applied to our positions make sense, that there are no errors, and that it's what the department heads think will work for that position. The second thing after we build that initial chart is to vet the job value against the market values. And so I'll go down and try and zoom in on this chart and show you what I mean by that. See if I can zoom in here. So this is kind of a graphical representation of what's going on inside the spreadsheets and the formulas. All of these little blue dots that you see are market data that Mike Swallow has provided. And so you've got the starting salary range on this axis, and then on the bottom you've got the job value. And at this point the job value is relative to the self-evaluation that the employees went through. And so when you see these dots all in a line like that, that's the range of market data for each position in the county that Mike Swallow provided. This red line is a curve that an exponential curve that tries to fit itself through all this data, and it's attempting to hit the average point or the rough middle point of any one of these lines as best it can. But if you look, you can see that for some of these positions, that regression curve will hit higher or lower. When we establish a salary range for each one of our positions, the way that it will work ultimately is that this starting salary is established by the job value. And so what we'll do is we'll assign a job value to each position. You'll come across to whatever that job value is. And so let's say this is roughly a job value of 10 right here. You go up until you hit that red line, which is roughly 40,000, and that's the starting salary for a job that has a job value of 10.
So the vertical lines or clusters, are those by job title?
Yes, that's right. Job title, it's the position. And so there's some range in that market data. So they're not all exactly the same job description, but they're similar enough to be classed into a job title. And so I think that, 3 years ago that we shifted over to a market-based salary survey study methodology. And so you really kind of have to shift your mind a little bit when you start thinking about doing market comparables for your salary surveys, because it almost puts you in a position of having to think more from the employee's perspective than the employer's perspective. Because what we're really trying to do is protect against lateral career changes. And so we have to think about the options that our employees have or our prospective employees have when they're job hunting or they're on the market. And what this process is attempting to do is to give something of some protection against lateral movement by creating a range within each job position. And so the step that we're in right now is we're vetting the market data. As you can see, there's some outliers when you look at this, and you can see dots that are either way above or way below the main cluster. And then, just pulling any obvious errors out of this market data and really vetting it so that it's a good foundation that way. The second step after we get that done is to actually vet the job value itself so that it comes into tolerance with the market value. And so Mike Swallow provided this little diagnostic tool. He calls it a market point factor market reconciliation. And so you can establish for each position a pay objective. And right now, this particular pay objective is pointing at this average right here, which is the average of all of those data points for that position, the starting salary. And then there's some statistics, standard deviation, standard error, which give us an indication of how far off that job value is with regard to matching the market value. And ideally, Mike Swallow suggests that the error ratio that you come up with should be plus or minus 2. And there are quite a few positions in the county right now that are out of tolerance that way. And so when we get to the point where we've reconciled the job values, this red line should roughly go through the average of all this market data, or roughly the middle of those clusters. You can see that it's not doing that right now. And in fact, some of them, if you were to, for instance, this particular position, would return a starting salary value above the highest market data point. And so the reconciliation of those job values is the second step. And once we do that, then we'll have a regression analysis and a curve, or that red line, that's pretty accurately representative of market averages for a job value. The job value is kind of an invention of the statistical process, but it gives us a handle to provide starting salary ranges for positions that we don't have market data for, or we have little market data for, because then we can draw parallels with other similar positions and put them into this regression analysis and still get a starting salary even if we don't have a lot of market data. And so that's the main step, and probably the most time-consuming, is to get this regression analysis as accurate as we possibly can. And then for each position, for most positions, the starting salary will just be the average. And that will get transferred over to what's called a compression adjustment. And so that's when each individual employee's time in position comes into play. And I'm probably going to propose that we go that route. Otherwise, if you just bring the bottom end up and you don't do anything for the middle or the top end, then your pay scale gets more and more compressed. And we already have a problem with pay compression in Grant County. And so we want to solve that problem. And so these starting salaries will be adjusted for time and position on an employee-by-employee basis, and that will be the end result of that will be the suggested salary for the compensation adjustment. And so if they're already making that amount or more, then they're not obviously going to get a raise, but if they're under that, then they'll be brought up to that point. Any questions on that methodology?
So you're in the process of doing the regression analysis right now? Is that what I understand?
Yeah, well, I've got the mechanics of it all worked out, and I built one of these little diagnostics for each position. And so what I'm waiting on right now is for the department heads and elected officials to vet their market data. And then once I get that vetted market data, then I'll start adjusting the job values for each one of those positions until we become in tolerance.
So you're working with the department heads and then they're looking at that to see if it matches what the job is,
So yeah, what we're like I said, what we're looking for is that the job value that's assigned to each position, when you hit it, the job value axis, this x-axis, and you come up to whatever wherever the red line is. We want that red line to be right on the average of the market data. And you can see that that's not the case right now because it hasn't been reconciled. The market data hasn't been reconciled yet with the job values. And when that happens, this red line will hopefully go right through the middle of each one of these groupings of market data.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're describing this process of going through the market data, finding errors, making corrections and adjustments. Can you give me an idea of how many errors or what percentage of the data you would describe as an error or incorrect or needing of an adjustment to date that you've looked through?
So there were quite a few errors in the market data, some typos that I've already fixed that were apparent. And I think that there are some, within the market data, some positions that were included as market data for some of our positions that obviously shouldn't have made it in there. It's an averaging process, and so a lot of times if you pull something out and it's already in the middle, it's not going to have much effect anyway. And it might be the same if you knock off the outliers from the bottom and the top. It may not change the average all that much. But still, I think that it's important to make sure that the data we're using is as sound as we can get it. So how big of an error is it? I don't know until the end. The job value, the self-evaluation has a lot of error in it. But that was a blind process, and there was no way for the employees to know exactly how it shakes out. And to be quite honest, in the real world, sometimes people have hard jobs and the market just doesn't value them. That's the reality of life. And so in some cases, they may have filled out their self-evaluation fairly accurately, but unfortunately the market doesn't back them up on how hard their job is. And so that can be part of it too. But it's all over the place. There are people that undervalue themselves and there are people that overvalue themselves.
Yeah. So you've described this deliverable from this consultant as a kit, and you're putting it together, right, and polishing it. How many hours would you say to date, just roughly, do you have into putting the kit together? A lot of time.
It's been quite a lot. I would say I've probably spent half of my hours working on this, what you say, Diana? Thus far. I don't know how many hours I've logged since I started, but I'm working 29 hours a week, and so half of that, roughly for this.
Yeah.
And so it's been quite a bit, but I'm not the pro on it. It took me a while to get up to speed, and so I'm sure if somebody else were doing it, that they would do it faster, but they'd probably also charge a lot more.
Well, I think you're doing a good job, a great job, and I just for the record for the council, I know it's difficult to do because there was a lot of pressure and frustration in the budget process, but I think that what we're seeing is that the decision to measure twice and cut once was a good decision with the time and effort and focus that's being put to this. It wasn't a complete work that properly prepared us to address the compensation. And so it's good to see you work through this, Chris.
Yeah, and I think that it's good that I do think it's good that it wasn't passed when it was, or ideally we would have got it a lot sooner and been able to polish it before the budget season was upon us. But you can see, just in this graph that there are quite a few of those positions where the red line doesn't go through the average or the midpoint of the clusters. Sometimes it's completely out of them altogether. But if we would have gone with this methodology as it is right now, those errors would have been memorialized in salaries.
Yeah.
And so one other thing that while I'm at it, to bring up just as an update, the Budget Advisory Committee is has defined their timeline. And so what I think we're going to do is request that the department heads and elected officials get their initial budget request in about a month earlier than normal. So we're setting a deadline for the end of July. And then for August and all of August and September, the Budget Advisory Board will meet with department heads and elected officials to refine their initial proposal. And then in October, we're expecting that the council will want to also vet the tentative budget before you approve it. And so we'll have October to work with the council and make sure that you're comfortable with it. And then the tentative budget needs to be submitted and approved in early November 1st. And so if we, it's an earlier timeline, but hopefully it'll give us more time to work things out. But I just wanted to give you an update on that so that you're aware that October is roughly the time I think that we're thinking of involving the council on doing some vetting of the tentative budget. And before then, it's possible, especially with regard to paying for this compensation adjustment, that we might have to get some direction from the council even earlier than that. So just want to give you a heads up on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? It's a little bit heady, but I think it's good. Oh, one other thing that I needed to bring up. Because we're using large aggregates of information for each position, and there's a spread in those job descriptions. They're not all exactly the same, but they're reasonably similar. Again, that's because we're trying to protect against lateral career changes. The implication of that is that the exact details of our job descriptions really have no effect whatsoever on this process. And so if our the only way that it would have an effect is if the job description changed so much that it jumped it into an entirely different category or job title. Because what we're doing is we're putting in you can see we're putting in a large aggregate of information, and there's a lot of different job descriptions probably represented there. And they're similar enough to be classed together, but as you can see, the idea is to clip the average on them. And that's including, a lot of different entities, both large and small, and some positions that are probably have less responsibility and more. But by hitting the average, we know that we're going to be covered for the majority of them. And so, job descriptions are important for a lot of different reasons, but for the most part, they have absolutely no bearing on the outcome of this methodology.
Jalen?
I have a question, Chris.
Yeah.
Do you recall what job that was that just barely hits the bottom of the regression curve over there on the...
This one?
Yes.
Is Judd gone? That's Judd's job.
Bill's here, though.
So what? I missed
He
the
said that
answer.
last night, didn't he? That's where we're... Okay.
So, yeah, does that make sense? I mean, like I say, job descriptions are important, but I seem to, have heard that there was concern that a generalized job description would make this process more expensive, but it doesn't. Not unless it actually changes the job title or reclassifies the position. And in a lot of cases, it's to the employer's advantage to have a more generalized job description. Not in all cases. There are some notable exceptions.
Did you say employer or employees?
It's to the employer's advantage to have a more generalized job description.
That's to the employees?
To the employer.
Employers.
Thank you.
Because, you're not going to get as much trouble with the concept of going above and beyond your duty as if you had an ultra detailed job description. And if we're going to be shooting for the averages anyway of a broader selection of job descriptions, then it probably should, be somewhat generalized. There are notable exceptions, and the ones that I would say are, in the case of Grant County's form of government, some of your executive responsibilities are delegated via job descriptions, not just policy. And so if it has anything to do with your executive authority being delegated, that needs to be very specific.
So the job descriptions that we've been approving last year, how many you've been reviewing those? Would you say those have moved from general to descriptive, fairly descriptive, very descriptive?
I haven't reviewed them. So, that's under review for department heads are working on them right now. And in some cases, I think the general impression that I'm getting is that they're getting too detailed.
Yeah, that's the impression that I have, having approved them.
And so there's, I guess there's different philosophies about it, but I think that having a more generalized job description is to the Grant County's advantage.
Yeah.
But like I say, because it has no bearing on the outcome of this process, I haven't really done a lot with them, and I've left that up to HR and to the department heads.
Do you have a PhD in flowcharts? This is impressive.
Oh, is it? This is only like the second one I've
ever made. It's a monster. It's good, though. It's good.
This is, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Any other
questions?
You got another 20 minutes. You sure you don't want to stick around?
I like to get done early.
Yeah. Thank you. We sure. Yes. Madam Chair, I just would like some clarification. I think I don't know about elected officials, but the department heads, I think, have gotten a little bogged down. We were supposed to start a process to send them, send a department at a time to you guys a month in advance, and to have a summary of all the, I think we were requested to get a detailed summary of what's the difference between the one you all approved last summer and the one Mike Swallow provided. And so we're having a lot of trouble getting that off the ground. I would like some direction. I have a leadership meeting this week, actually. I'd like to be able to tell them if it's not really necessary to do all that, other than to look for the major things that stand out, which they have done. Those you all need to know, but I think that it's way too much work.
If I understand, the job descriptions aren't going to affect.
Right.
No, not necessarily the salary survey, but like Chris mentioned, it is pertinent, to run in the organization. Ruth, let me ask you, because I've kind of gotten punch drunk from job descriptions, but we amended the job descriptions, and then Mike, the consultant, converted those into kind of a template that he uses.
Right.
And so where we're at in the process now is, do we want to adopt that template like for future surveys and convert the amended job descriptions into those templates? Is that what you're asking?
What needs to happen, and it has been happening whenever we've had to hire, is you all are adopting the Mike Swallow version that have been looked at by HR and the department head. Those are the only ones really that you've seen on the agenda, and that's what you asked. You didn't want to see them except by email and groups, and so anyway, it's a process that needs to change. I would suggest that since it won't change the compensation, that we really just give you all, what we need is adopted job descriptions, right, John? This is really John's purview. What we need is for us to have that, so that when he goes to recruit, he's got the correct job description. Yeah. And the county did pay to have these job descriptions redone, and they are more generalized than ours.
So, yeah.
They are more generalized?
Yes. So how much, what is left, what boxes are left to check? You said your department heads are busy and you're having a hard time getting them off the ground. Describe that. What exactly?
Well, where we're bogged down is the request was made for a comparison between what was approved by you all last summer. You remember all those job descriptions? So take one of those. Let's say it's mine. I need to go and check do a comparison of my job description that you guys approved with what Mike Swallow provided, and somehow figure, give you all a bulleted list of all the differences. That's what was requested.
They've already been vetted. The generalized job description's already been vetted by HR and by...
Right.
So,
in general terms, but not in specific.
So an additional vetting from the board, does the board want to do that? Or do we want to just approve them since they've been vetted? That's the question.
That is the question.
Took me a while to get there.
Me too.
I'm so used to grabbing this. Yeah, from what I remember, the discussion at one point was that the county council at one point wanted to know specifically what changed when it went from the old template to the new template. And that's a time-consuming process, correct?
Yes.
So what Ruth is asking is, can we let that go?
Yeah, well, we understand what she's asking.
Yeah.
I'm just
So
looking
do
for
we
head
want
nods.
to let that go?
I'm happy to not micromanage
I am too.
and let it go.
Yeah.
So what I would like to say is that I think what we can confidently give you, there were some glaring differences that came back. They didn't all come back 100% accurate. And so that is what has been vetted with John and the various departments. I don't know if every single one of them have.
We still have a few left with the sheriff's
left.
office that we're working on.
Okay. So
And the
we
library's got one.
we could pretty well confidently give you the, a bunch of them all at once on a consent agenda, even if you like. The ones that really we feel ready. HR feels ready, the department feels ready, the elected official feels ready. Boom, and then we just need your blessing. So that those are ready to go. And the ones that aren't quite ready to go, they'll come in another group. That would be easy for you guys and easy for us, and can get it done.
Okay.
If you guys are comfortable with
Should
that.
we do a straw vote? I know we can't vote on this.
I'm seeing lots of head nods. So
Just lots of head
I feel
nods,
comfortable
okay.
with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Chris.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks,
Chris.
guys.
Thank you very much. This was very
Moving
good.
along now.
That took 30 minutes.
Thank you. We are now to general business action items, discussion and consideration. Approving proposed Four Corners Community Behavioral Health information for fiscal year 2019 area plan. Karen Dolan.
Hi.
Hi, Karen.
So I'm Karen Dolan. I'm the director of Four Corners. I'm really happy to be here. We've been traffic for a long time by Green River. So what you have is the Four Corners area plan. This has been approved and vetted by our Four Corners board, which is a county commissioner from each of the 3 counties and 3 citizen members. It's really echoey out there. When you're sitting out there, the microphone's super. Yeah, it's like
Are these on? That's probably why.
I don't know if it was this little thing.
Yeah, these are on too, so we're double mic'd right here.
Yeah.
I think he had it turned up too high.
Yeah, that was really kind of hurting your ears out there. Okay,
Now I hear a hum.
there is a little hum.
A big hum.
I think that's the AC.
You think it's the AC? We'll go with the AC.
Okay.
Sorry.
So our area plan, this is our annual area plan. We write this each year. It talks about our services, and the state statute gives the counties the local authority to be the substance abuse and mental health provider and authority in the counties. So we each year write our plan, how we're going to deliver these services, how we're going to take care of the safety net population. Four Corners was created to fulfill this for the counties, to be the local mental health and substance abuse provider. So I'm here for a signature and approval. So in our interlocal agreement, it says that all the county commissioners and county council persons will sign this plan.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So, the motion is to move for the signing of the fiscal year 2019 area plan for Four Corners Community Behavioral Health Incorporated, and authorize all council members to sign all associated documents. A motion was made by Jalen Hawks and seconded by, was it Evan or Curtis? Curtis Wells. Any further discussion? Yes.
So I should know this after breezing through it twice.
It's huge.
It is.
But I'm still not clear on what's happening in Grant County as far as suicide prevention, and also I know you've had terrific success with open access. And I think it said you do that at all your clinics.
We do.
So Grant County now has open access.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. Suicide prevention, we did receive a grant. It's primarily for Carbon and Emory. We have one position. With suicide prevention, we have crisis workers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We do a lot of education, early intervention in the schools. We're part of a coalition to help promote suicide prevention. That's what we're doing.
I had a question. We have another agenda item later tonight about beer tax funds.
Yes.
And we're spending a lot of money on enforcement and confinement. And it's my understanding that you would be our local substance abuse authority that could help us with prevention. Are there any of those programs that they've listed that are available in our area?
Absolutely. So I did a little research on the way down here while I was sitting waiting for the flagger to turn. So apparently the beer tax is divided up per population statewide, and then that money goes locally to be used for, there's a variety of things that it can be used for. We do DUI evaluations and then bill the county for those, and I think it's $75 an evaluation. And then if there's any needed subsequent treatment, either the person or grants pay for that treatment. That's what we do. I know other counties use those funds, so I don't have any idea how much money that is. Other counties use those funds to pay for different things: substance abuse treatment, prevention coalitions, substance abuse prevention or efforts in the schools. So yes, we would absolutely be open to help with that.
So what do we need to change?
Well, there's a list of other evidence-based, evidence-informed programs, and I would like to see some of that in our community, and not just spending all the beer money on
law enforcement
checkpoints and confinement, I suppose.
Yes.
Did you find this document?
Is this, no?
I mean, this happens to be on our consent agenda, and reading through it, there are the 4 areas, 2 of which are required. 25% of the funds must be spent in treatment and or confinement. And so in the treatment category, the boxes that are checked for, first of all, it says, are you coordinating with the local substance abuse authority in your area? The yes box is checked. And then it lists some services, and the boxes that are checked for this particular beer tax plan for Grant County is recovery support services, medication for alcohol or substance abuse dependency, outpatient programs, screening, and assessment. So I just wondered if that was an accurate reflection of what we're collaborating with you on.
We are providing only DUI screenings, and we did $1,500 worth last year. So that's all we've done. The rest of this, I don't know. Maybe this is what's happening in the jail. This is not our services. So
I guess my point was that I would like to funnel money to you to provide
if that's possible,
prevention services. And it's just a matter of checking this box, and the more beer we sell, then the more preventative programs we get. Then
I'm happy to do some research and see what it's happening around the state.
Maybe it's too late for this year, but
we could next year.
Yeah.
Does the sheriff control those funds? Yeah, so it's not a matter of us saying do this. It's pretty much got to get sheriff.
Well, I guess my question was, it's got half a dozen different programs listed, and I know that there's different abuse authorities throughout the state, and I didn't know if all of these programs were available to us here, or if there were certain ones. Keeping It Real guiding good choices, Prime for Life, communities that care, life skills training, parenting wisely, too good for drugs, blah, blah, blah.
We do several of those. So we do Y-Try, we do life skills, we do the prevention, DUI prevention, Prime for Life. So we do several of these. I wonder if we should maybe have a meeting with the sheriff and then I'll do some research around the state and see what else is being done. And
that'd be great.
Maybe
and
propose.
if there's one that you would recommend that, or a couple that you would recommend that would be a good fit for us.
Do you have anything to comment? Do you have any information that would help with this discussion?
Well, one of the things that we're listening to here next to be listed are things that happen in the jail. So if you're AA, obviously medication and stuff like that. We talked about we've got people that are alcoholics that are trying to get off alcohol and get on the head use, whatever it's called. We're talking about your DPA that helps you through that process and come off of drugs. You've got certain medications that you often would prescribe. So that's where medication is IOP, equitable quarters. They come over and they do for females and they do for males. Those are things that are taking place in the jail. As an outside of the jail, I have no idea what they do. So I know they do full-time life, DUIs and stuff like that. Jail rules that people have to take and then be charged for these things. This is required to do assessments, it's required to do programs. What we listen to, we can't dispute what's going on in jail. Okay.
Yes, Greg?
Yeah, do you have any idea of all the things that you do, what the effective percentage is that these people figure out how to live after this, or do they go right back into it again, or?
Well, addiction is a chronic relapsing disease, and treatment has about the same kind of outcome as any other chronic relapsing disease, as hypertension or diabetes or cancer. And I think some people, they turn their lives around and they never relapse again, but more people will do pretty well and then relapse and then do well for a period of time again, eventually being able to build enough recovery support to live in long-term recovery. But it is a chronic relapsing disease. And so, for example, when someone's in drug court, it's about 2 years. We have really good success during that 2-year period. There's a lot of support and a lot of treatment, a lot of accountability and drug testing. After drug court, percentage of those will relapse. Many of them come back and start over and get more help. It's just like other diseases, we just keep working at it. So.
Okay.
I don't know how much money came into Grand County with the beer tax. I do know that we billed $1,500. So that amount went to our DUI screenings.
And so just one final question for you. Help me understand the logistics. So if Dr. Raza prescribes a medication, then he would bill Grand County for the beer tax funds for that portion of it.
And it's around $18,000 that we got this year for.
And each visit we come to, prescriptions. Most of these guys that are coming in on this stuff, they're right over
So I have this signature.
Okay, I should call for a vote. This time, do we need to repeat the motion? Does everybody remember? Okay. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. We are now moving to item K, reclassifying the temporary part-time training position in the clerk auditor's office to a temporarily full-time unbudgeted budget officer position for the remainder of 2018. Diana Carroll, clerk auditor, and Chris Baird, budget officer.
There we go. All right. So as I indicated, I believe at the last meeting, the budget officer's duties this year are fairly substantial and probably are certainly going to require full-time hours, especially with regard to trying to get this new software system up and running and also finish off the compensation salary study. One of the things, and I think that Dinah, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the deputies moved over to the Justice Court, and I don't think we're planning to rehire that position until next year. And so I've just been using that deputy's desk and workstation. And so the increase going from my position to go full-time over what's already been approved is $19,832. And if we don't rehire for that position until next year, there'll be a savings of $25,477. And so the wash will actually be $5,600 cheaper. And so I'd also like to have the opportunity to train on a lot of the other stuff in the office as well, and it helps me to be in that position as well. Any questions on that?
Have a motion.
Yes.
I move to approve a reclassification of the temporary part-time training position in the clerk auditor's office approved on April 17th to a temporary full-time budget officer position. Position to commence on June 6th and end December 31st, 2018, with total cost to the county's general fund balance not to exceed $49,283, and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
Motion by Jay Lynn,
Second.
seconded by Curtis Wells. Discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you're planning not to rehire that position, or that's just like in case it's not rehired.
Not planning to rehire.
Is that going to leave you shorthanded, or?
This is working.
Well, I have been doing, picking up the slack on other things also besides just this stuff, and so that we've been discussing the compensation and the budgeting. So, been training on elections and essentially assess taxes and various things like that. And so, taking up some of the slack that way too. And so, I think that we'll be able to get by. And then when I move into the clerk auditor's position, then we can rehire and have the office, maintain the same number of people.
Yes, Curtis?
Just going to add again, it's really common to have a full-time position in the clerk auditor's office with the title job of budget officer. And that's common in the state of Utah today to do good budgeting, and I think this is smart succession planning.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll see, hopefully in the future, if we get the software up and running the way we want it and everyone's trained, that'll be a lot easier job next year for the budget officer.
Yes, good transition. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Chris.
Thanks,
You're
Chris.
up for the next one. Approving the unbudgeted 2% cost of living adjustment COLA for non-elected employees. Chris Bear, Budget Officer.
Okay, so on our at the May 30th Budget Advisory Board, the board voted unanimously to forward on a favorable recommendation for a 2% cost of living adjustment for either and non-elected employees and elected employees, and to either, just at the discretion of the council, to make it retroactive to January 1st or to begin in July. And so I've given some figures on the cost, approximate costs. The approximate cost for going retroactive to January 1st of this year would be $169,000 for both salary and benefits, and then beginning in July would be approximately half of that, $84,500. And I just also wanted to go over some revenue projections. since we closed 2017 out, it makes it easier to actually project 2018's revenues from when when you were doing the budgeting last year. And so I think that you can see the projection above budget is how much we're going to bring in above what we budgeted. And then I broke also the COLA out into how it could be paid for by revenue stream. So you can see, I think we're doing pretty well just on revenue alone. In addition to that, there are several several budgeted positions that have gone vacant, and so that's going to be a decrease in expenses from what was budgeted. Last year, also, we closed out the year at a little over $4 million in the fund balance, which is an increase of almost $500,000. So that's pretty good. And I projected these figures for the revenue streams based on if the growth maintained the same statistics as from 2016 to 2017. But Diana and I have been looking over some of the revenue from sales tax that's been coming in this year, and it's 12% more than it was last year, which means that we're growing even more this year than we did
Shall I get
between
these other two
2016 and
signatures and
2017.
then mail it to you? Because you need all seven. Ruth, your mic's on.
This is the danger of
Okay,
these things.
we can get it done. I think so. We have Pat out of town, but I think he'll be back. Yeah, we have another meeting, so we should be able to get them. And you need the, so
At
you
least
need
it's
the
a decent
original.
conversation.
Just trying to think if there's anything else. I guess not, huh? Oops. Okay. You heard the oops.
Those projections are great,
Yeah,
Chris.
it was perfect. I heard you were running late.
We can't find
You
it.
say,
Anyway, so I think the revenue is going to come in better, you know, and the expenses are not going to be quite as much as anticipated. We've got a healthy fund balance, and like I say, I suspect that we'll probably grow actually a little bit more this year in sales tax, and you could probably see that just in how busy town is. So I would say we're doing pretty well, and I think it would go a long way for the employees' morale to give a COLA for this year, and I think it will also help in the long run, you know, when we do our salary study again in another 5 years, that we're not behind again.
Yeah.
And that we don't, we're keeping up with inflation at least, you know, and so that's, I think, an important thing, especially considering the cost of living in Grand County.
yes, Curtis?
Well, I would move to approve a 2% cost of living adjustment for all non-elected county employees to begin retroactive on January 1st, 2018, and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
Okay, motion by Curtis Wells, seconded by Jalen Hawks. Any further discussion? This is good news.
Just a little bit of discussion is, you know, again, I know we went through some frustrating meetings, but it's really great to be able to look at these projections and you know, run a rational analysis of what our margin is, so that we can, you know, balance compensating our employees fairly and, you know, managing the organization as a whole. So thank you again for collecting this information. Thank you to the employees. It's been patient, and I think this is a good thing to do.
I'm very excited about it, yes. Any other discussion?
Yes, just a quick question. Are we clear, sorry, I got my mic system. Are we clear which fund this is coming from? I mean, are we
Yeah, I
saying
think
general
he
fund
has it.
or-
He has it out here, don't you?
Well, I can, so what will happen is that when we go through the process of approving next year's budget, we'll also have to amend this current year's budget. And it will be a significant amendment, but because revenue will be, you know, probably considerably greater than what we anticipated, that means that the bottom line won't go under what we budgeted, which is the important thing. And so I think that, you know, at the point in time when we do that, we'll be okay, and we'll be able to incorporate this change when we do the modification of the budget in December.
When we do. Okay. All in favor of the motion? Motion passes 5-0.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you.
And
Now
just
we are on-
one other update before I go, just to make it clear, there are 2 more agenda items for COLAs for the council and the elected officials, and those are ordinances, and so they require public hearings, and so we're going to try and get those on for the next council meeting, just so you're not feeling left out or whatever.
That's a good thing, because, well, you made a comment in the Budget Advisory Board that when we're catching elected officials up, it doesn't feel right when the elected officials are getting a COLA adjustment and not the employees, so it's good to keep everybody on the same track.
Yeah, it's just, overcoming inflation, so it makes sense for everybody, in my opinion. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We are now on item N, approving the unbudgeted funding for contracting out terminal cleaning and water sewage treatment and monitoring at Canyon Landsfield Airport, Judd Hill Airport Director, and Bill Groff Airport Board Chair. Excuse me.
Okay. The airport's open. The airport's busy. Last month actually represented the busiest month in the history of the airport now that we're back open. Last year was a very busy year. Employments are always important. We were at 9,863 unofficially, just shy of that 10,000 mark. Last month, the number of employments, not counting charters, for last month equals 20% of all of last year. So it's a busier, bigger airport. One of the largest problems that we have and get the most complaints about is our terminal. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's the only county facility that's open 365 days a year, that's open to the public, other than the jail. It's not necessarily open to the public. But we've got to keep it going 12, 13 hours a day. Currently, we have only myself and 2 other staff. We have 5 part-time people, but in essence, they could be considered 1 part-time person because it's working 1 shift a day, Saturday, 1 Sunday. So it's basically doing the hours of a single part-time person. The only reason of having 5 is that it's hard to get part-time help. It's a specialized trained person that has to do the fire. But we're doing all of the cleaning as well as everything else out there at the airport. Now, this came up at the last airport board meeting in May as a future consideration. So this same identical agenda, or this agenda item, was put on the airport board last night. And where this money comes from, the 110 on an annual basis, I called up all the local cleaning companies listed under Google search for Moab cleaning companies. Only 1 got back to me. I left a message with all of them saying, here's what we're looking for, cleaning services for the airport every day of the year for 365 days a year. Only 1 got back to me. They came out and gave a pretty detailed report. I didn't include it in this because this is going for what would it generally cost. If we were to go this route, then it would go off to an RFP, a formal RFP versus just bids. But it was just under $90,000 for the cleaning services. To do the windows just once every 2 weeks was about $550 each 2-week period to do all of the windows out there. And then also our water certification testing is kind of included in this because it's another aspect that has become significantly more detailed. When I started 4 years ago, to test we pump our own water, we treat it, we distribute it, we collect all the sewage, we treat it, and everything from start to finish on a water line. And when it came to our water treatment, we were testing it 4 times a year. 2 years ago, it went to testing 12 times a year. Last year, it went to testing over 160 times a year. And each one of those increases also, we were required to have a lot of certifications, which we don't have. And so right now, I'm just doing a month-to-month contracting with someone that's $500 a month, but they are a professional. Their job is
This particular individual's job was with the city water department. He has every single certification that is needed for cross connections, every single toilet, sink, hose bib, whether it's in the terminal or in a private hangar. It all falls on us to regulate and certify it. We don't have that in-house, so we have to farm that out or get significant penalties with DEQ. So I've already started that, but I can only do it for a short amount of time before it reaches the purchasing policy of $2,000. But $500 a month, $6,000 a year is what we're currently paying at. Obviously, if we go extend it, we have to get multiple bids and find the best one, but this guy was available when we needed him. So that's where this number comes from. And that would be a once a day cleaning. It would still require our staff to do about an hour or 2 hours a day, which is about what we were doing 2 years ago to keep it clean. It's getting trash after every major flux of people. Looking at rough numbers, last month we had almost 10,000 people passing through the airports. The population of Grand County, by either people flying in, people flying out, tours of helicopters, skydivers, and we had 1,998 people fall from the sky skydiving last month. And that's just a lot of people coming and going. And we need to clean up after them. So like I said, the next page in your packet is a spreadsheet that actually Bill was able to compile by reaching out to lots of other airports on general staffing of different airports. Long story short, from the airport board's perspective, I proposed this and they recommended against contracting it out to a local business instead of hiring in-house additional people dedicated just for cleaning versus those that are going to be certified firefighters and dealing with the operations basically on a daily basis. The airport's 1,000 acres, but there's about 300 acres we need to attend to every single day with the runways, the taxiways. There's stuff that we just can't, we don't have the ability, and it kind of ties directly in with the next agenda item. And so far, since we've been open, just in our lighting systems, we had a runway light taken out by an aircraft, a taxiway light taken out, and it's $1,000 in lights. We don't yet have our security cameras up, so we're going to have to eat that money instead of being able to bill it out. There's just an operating airport takes people. So with regards to this particular agenda item, and Bill can go into greater detail on this spreadsheet of what they were looking for and what other places are doing, but the board recommended not doing a contract and instead looking at hiring additional staff for the cleaning aspects that could possibly, we would utilize in things beyond just cleaning. But Bill.
Yeah, so what we recommended be done is Judd needs another operations specialist, minimum one. We'd like to see two. And he needs a couple people who will do the terminal, who will also fit into it. That would put 4 people out there. 2 would become specialists in trading, and 2 would not. If you look at your chart, we are at the bottom as far as the amount of people we have to run the airport. We have a gem out there right now, and if we don't take care of it, it's going to turn into a piece of coal. It's Vernal is the only one who has less people, and but they have in-house ARF, which most of the airports are within the city, so they all have city firefighters that do their ARF, so they don't have to worry about it. We don't have that luxury. And we're also, 20 miles out. What we're recommending is 4 more people to help us here. 4.
Okay, question. I appreciate you putting this chart together, Bill, because it's really good to have these frames of reference. And especially look at the employments. Couple questions. Cedar City's got comparable employments to where we're at now.
Correct.
And they've got 4 staff, 4 full-time, 0 part-time, but they've got their city fire department doing their ARF.
Correct.
And
Is
they-
that,
And city doing
And-
all of their maintenance and cleaning. Those 4 people do the admin, so they have a manager such as myself, and then 4 people just to take care of the airfield. As far as the terminal grounds, the maintenance.
and how many
cleaning,
people do you have on the airfield now?
Myself and 2.
So 3.
3.
So you're 1 short. I'm just trying to get an idea. And then another question is, looks like we're pretty high on part-time. We've got more part-time people than airports that have 10 times our employments. If we scale up into full-time, do you see those part-time positions offsetting? Yeah.
Very much so. If I were to go out today, I would first put out, if we were to get additional operations, first I would look for internal, because we're looking at, last month, it would cost about $3,000 to get a person certified, plus another $2,500 in gear. Today, it's going to cost about $5,000. The last 20 some odd years, we've done our training in Salt Lake. June 1st, they permanently shut down their training center. So we're looking at going to Texas or Montana or the next closest training centers. And that's just an additional cost. That will be ongoing, and just for annual training. There's a week-long training to get certified, and then an annual refresher. It's just a 1 day, and it's mandatory.
So you're envisioning, Bill, an additional operations specialist, and then also someone that's kind of a hybrid that can handle some of the terminal stuff, but then...
And then two people who do the in-house janitorial.
Because that bid came in pretty high.
Yeah, it did. And we figured we could get by if we hired them with benefits and everything for less than $90,000.
Yeah, and have them maybe
plus
float
being
a
able
little
to
bit.
help out every other. And I want to say one more thing. During this 4-month closure and getting open on time, I was out there a lot and volunteered work, but there were several of the airport board that did. I followed Judd around there. I can't do it. I mean, it's amazing the amount of work and the people that he has to put up with. I mean, each project that we did out there was a 6-month project, and we did them all in 4 months. And we had 5 of them. And it's first of all, he needs to be commended. If it was a private enterprise, he would have got a bonus of $200,000. I know he would have. And
well, that's out. Just to be clear.
Okay, I won't ask the last. And I also want to thank Mary and Ruth for coming out to the grand opening. That was great. I wish the rest of you could have made it, but some of you couldn't. I know. So on with this.
Yes.
So, Judd, if you got to full-time operations specialist, did I hear you right? When I think you said some of the part-time would go away?
Yes, it's one where right now, like I said, we have 5 part-time. We really have 1 part-time. It's just that trying to get people to schedule. What I really want to have is a full-time person working 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
That's you.
And
besides
beyond me. But I mean, also realize that when it comes, that's just for the operations. Christmas morning, there's going to be a flight going in and out. There needs to be someone certified firefighter on site.
Yeah.
Not counting the snow removal. And then realize 10 a.m. Christmas morning, someone is scrubbing the toilet. So cleaning is a year-round. I mean, obviously we had 10,000 last month. Come December, we'll probably have only 2,000, 3,000. But that's still 3,000 people. That's still 100 people a day passing through a building.
So the part-time, you've got 5 part-time, but you're only getting 1 that's really getting scheduled and working, is it?
It's one where there's 5 people, but there's never more than 1 of them working at any point in time. The advantage of having 5 is that every one of with 1 person's exception, the other 4 all have full-time jobs. They all have at least 1 other part-time job. All of those pay more than we pay. They are getting them to volunteer. They basically are doing it because they love being out at the airport. But at best, I'm getting them for 1, maybe 2 days a month. It's just hard to get it scheduled with part-time people. So
question that I have is, we've got two items on the agenda for you. We've got basically budgeting for cleaning services, but it sounds like the board, and I would agree with them to this point, has something different in mind, but then we just have approving one new full-time position. So how are we gonna keep the terminal clean and get another full-time person on with just one new position? It sounds like what you're really asking for is two new. Three new, four new. Whoa.
We're asking for four.
Four, he said that from the
We're hoping for
beginning.
three, so that's what that is.
I mean, if I could, the ideal situation is 7 days a week, at least one full-time person on. Because we still have certified part-time people on staff, it's possible that if I can get them scheduled, I would have two operations people. Big problem that's been happening, it's a great problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless, and that deals with shuttles and taxis. Very problematic. We never had anyone ever show up to a flight with a taxi or a shuttle. 20 years, never happened. Now there's 4 or 5 for every flight, and they're fighting, and they're cussing me out in the parking lot because we're not having it organized, literally. Bill's seen that one.
Yep.
They are upset that we don't have massive dedicated areas for them. It is in our fee schedule to be regulating them, not having the time to do that. Even if we did have that set up, if we only have one person out there, that one staff has to be at the fire truck because they have to be there 15 minutes before they land. SkyWest is buying all of their fuel from Redtail underbid Denver International. So they're buying all of their fuel there, so we have to be there for the entire time, 15 minutes before they land to 15 minutes after they're gone. So if we only have one staff member, they are on standby for fire response. Well, all of these issues are happening. We've had a couple of other incidents where if we had staff being able to be over at the terminal, it could at least help mitigate that. But all of them would require a second person just to be over there to deal with the problems of give or take 200 people in a 45-minute period of people coming in, people picking those people up, other people dropping off, people departing. Not to mention the 20-some-odd staff and the other companies and their businesses coming and going. It's great problems to have. Don't get me wrong, they're great problems because it means growth, but they're problems nonetheless.
And it's just, they're overworked, definitely overworked.
I'd like to make a motion.
How many hours of overtime have your people put in the last month?
So
they're still selling us.
So I think we're not going to.
They didn't hear that.
That's the question I have is but what the request that's on the agenda is not matching the request.
No, and that's just, it was something that, because it came out of the airport board, and I don't know how to address that because it was brought up by the board as a future consideration at the May agenda. Board didn't meet again
Our
until
board meeting
last
was
night.
last night. Your agenda got put out on
Yeah.
So were we requesting to just move on, dismiss this agenda item?
So what I'm looking at is that we want to you can't do a non-vote motion, but
I mean,
we
is
can.
it possible, should I be
Check.
coming back at the next meeting
No.
with, because it's a job that doesn't even exist yet as far as the job description of a maintenance person.
So what it looks like is that item M, we can have a motion for and then vote it down, because we're not going to want to do that,
Or just a
right?
motion to postpone indefinitely this agenda item, which is to budget money for a cleaning contract.
And we don't
we're
want
not
to do
gonna
that.
Right.
So we can just.
I mean, we
Could you
recommended
please
not doing that.
consider the water treatment aspects of the funding for the water treatment aspects? Or
That's what we're
certified
looking
tester.
for. Okay.
That's what we need
Out
to
of
know.
They're still selling us.
Okay, Evan, you have a motion.
I move we approve funding for the water certification
Okay. Thank you.
treatment.
Water sewage treatment.
That. Water sewage, $6,000. Authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
Second.
Okay, motion by Evan Clapper to authorize
$6,000 for water treatment certification.
6,000,
Goodies.
okay, for the water,
Per year.
65,000 for the water treatment. Okay, we got it. It was a motion by Evan Clapper, seconded by Curtis Wells. Any further discussion? Yes.
just where the funding would come from. Just, I was like, if it's not budgeted, I think it's good to state that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. As I mentioned, I apologize if I didn't make it out to the airport grand opening, but I did drive out there today, and it's a beautiful terminal. I filled in for Rory last night, and so as an airport board temporary member, I voted for this.
You don't get to vote on that board.
Yeah.
Oops.
Your vote wasn't recorded as a.
Oh, well,
You don't get to-
I think don't our bylaws say if you're replacing someone?
The
It's a
council
non-
liaison is a non-voting member. of the
Okay,
airport.
cool. Great, then I don't even have to apologize for what I'm about to do now. My vote didn't count. As a council person in charge of budgeting, I would just really like to take a more conservative, cautious approach. I mean, not that I want to do it, but if I had 40 hours a week to clean that terminal, I could do it. And so I'm not sure that at this point in time, I would like to see 2 people hired. I would rather let it ride. I'd rather hire one and see how it goes for 6 months and then address the other one in the next budget.
At a minimum, also recognize that it would have to be a minimum of 56 hours because it's 7 days a week, not 5 hours, not 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's 7 days a week.
But we're not voting on the.
No, I'm just saying moving forward to when you come back
Okay.
with an item. I know we're not voting on that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the board for the approval of paying for the water and sewer treatment and monitoring at Canyonlands Field Airport. And it was motioned by Evan Clapper, seconded by Curtis Wells. Any further discussion?
Is there a suggested fund to fund this from?
A suggested fund can, Diana,
About the only thing we have to do is
rainy day?
amend his budget during the process.
Okay, if that's the only thing we can do, let's
Unless
do
you
that.
can cut something else.
There's nothing else.
No, and one thing I do want to at least, it's not just a black hole. Last month, we did bring in about 30,000 in revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's offsetting.
It definitely helped. We're not in the black, actually. Salt Lake International is the only airport in the state that's in the black. St. George is usually on the border. But we're not just a black hole. We will bring in, the $300,000, $250,000 to $300,000 if we go to charging for parking for everyone all day long and be in the $500,000 revenue range.
Need staff to charge for parking. Am I right?
Yep.
Can't do it.
So, any further discussion on sewer and water treatment? And we will amend the budget to have that come from there. Okay, any, call for a vote? All in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Item N, approving unbudgeted funding for additional full-time airport operator specialist position at Canyonlands Field Airport, Judd Hill.
Ditto.
Yeah, we just pretty much went through that, so.
Yeah.
And we'll take one instead of 2.
The general range is based around if a part-time employee would desire full-time employment, that means they're already certified, that means they already have gear. If we had to go out to an open, then that's where the higher value in that range per employee would be located, is the cost of training and gear.
And you're recommending, Diana, to fund this from?
Greg Halliday had his hand up.
Yeah, one other thing we need to consider here is he's got 5 people now, and 5 are part-time?
Correct.
So with the current staff, if he loses anybody, if somebody gets sick, they decide that they've had enough, they quit on you, then what happens?
Yep.
Okay, so I think we need to consider bringing more people on based upon the fact that he's right at the edge now of being able to carry out his necessary functions.
Yes, Curtis.
And you're recommending to amend his budget and pay for this from fund balance, Diana? Or just, yeah, okay. So I would move to approve funding from fund balance for additional airport operations specialist staff positions for Canyonlands Field Grade 13 and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
How many?
Well, grade 13, that's 34,000 to
No, I mean a number. You said
one.
one.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
And that, I would just say that that's not, my motion to fund one is not to challenge or discredit the identified need for two, but to, I don't want to say ease into it, but to take careful steps, understanding that we've invested a lot to convert the airport from potentially a liability to an asset, and I've spent a day out there with you. Understand that you're understaffed, you've got a lot going on, and a lot to do, and the airport's maturing, but at this point I'm comfortable with adding one new position.
You can always come back.
And should I come back in 2 weeks with a job description and for the cleaning aspects of it?
Yes.
Okay, just to be clear on the directive of the previous.
So you will be coming back in 2 weeks for the cleaning aspect of it, correct? And you'll be most likely asking for two?
But let's keep the, well, I'll wait for a vote.
But today we're doing one. Today we're voting to add one more additional full-time airport operational specialist.
Let's keep the dialogue going, Judd, and you're always good about keeping us updated, and with the importance that the priority that we've made the airport through funding, definitely want to be apprised of things as they
I definitely,
change.
understand the need. It's one where I'm not a big fan of big government, just in my personal beliefs. So I'm not opposed to being conservative. However, I will be honest, based off of whatever changes we do. If I need more, I'm going to be back.
Can we cut Bill's pay?
Wait, sorry, I'm deep.
I'd like to make a substitute motion. I'd like to, I move to approve funding from the the fund balance for 2 additional operations specialist staff positions for the Canyonlands Field Airport and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
Do I have a second?
As a comment,
They're in the middle of it. I think we
Do
need
I
to do
have a second for the substitute motion to hire 2 additional airport operational specialists? Motion fails due to a lack of a second. We go back to the original motion to fund one full-time airport operational specialist position. Any further discussion?
if I may, I very much appreciate the ability to increase staff by 50%. It's little makes a lot here. I'm definitely willing to give it a hard go with one, and I'll give an honest assessment of where we're at with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I want to express my thanks on how much support that we've gotten from the council for the airport. You guys have been unwavering.
Thank you for the time that you put in, Bill. You're out there every time I'm out there.
Yeah, Bill Hawley and Bill Groff together or combined probably put in well over 500 hours in the last 5 months of volunteer time to the airport. We couldn't have gotten done without their volunteer work, as well as a lot of other volunteers.
And since we're talking hours, just so you guys know what this young man has been pulling. So 160 hours, 170 hours in a 2-week period. I mean, normal 80, he's been more than doubling it, and he's done it back to back to back. He's really fried. So thank you to Judd for just
being there. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Judd. Item O, approving proposed resolution pending legal review to inform land developers of potential future changes to the Grand County Land Use Code. Council Member Hawks.
Okay. As the agenda, well, first I'll call your attention to, on your dais, agenda item O, there is the correct code.
Oh, okay, let me see.
Code that got put in the packet was incorrect, so. And as the agenda summary says, that in 2017, the County Council adopted the Moab Area Affordable Housing Plan, which had two provisions in it. The first was to do a quantitative assessment of the housing market in Grand County and needs projection for housing that's affordable. And the second part was evaluation of possible adoption of assured housing policy as a primary action item. So we've done provision one, and we will see the results of that hopefully at the next council meeting. And pending the evaluation of the results, that second provision could follow. And since that could affect our land use code and potential requirements for developers, this resolution notifies the developers that they are free to go ahead and submit applications. They will be processed as normal, but the requirements may change pending whether or not we get an assured housing policy in place. So that's all this does. We have 180 days by statute to get everything up and running in place. So at the end of that 180 days, if we've done nothing and made no decisions, then those applications will be processed as they normally would. And anything that we thought we might have enacted is null and void. So I would make a motion to approve the proposed resolution to inform land developers of potential future changes to the Grand County Land Use Code effective immediately upon passage, and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Evan Clapper, motion by Jalen Hawks. Discussion.
So the only thing that I see that I wouldn't say that's missing is if you remember the finished first half of the Nexus study, the recommendation in there for assured housing was anything over, I think, was it 12 units would require the assured housing policy.
Might have been 8, but maybe it was 12. I don't remember.
Well, it just, these things can set off a lot of unnecessary alarms and concern, with developers, and I think providing some kind of notice of an approximate threshold is helpful. There's people that have developments, in the works when they range from it's common for 2 to 4 units, and requiring a payment in lieu of development or housing construction on top of that kills those prospects. They don't pencil up. And so it'd be nice to be able to reference that just so if people have an idea of exactly what we're talking about. Not to set off unnecessary concern. I mean, really my understanding is what we're targeting here, hotels, and large developments, and anything that's 8, even 8 units and above, but definitely 12. That's a large project, and their pro formas, a payment in lieu of development, or a housing requirement still allows for feasibility. It's essentially a line item at that point. But I think this isn't a black and white issue. There's a lot of variables in this, and I'm all for trying to cover the back end. We've got 2 new hotels coming online that's going to increase inventory from about 2,600 to 3,000 in the community, and I think 2 more on top of that that are in the works. And so, you know, this policy is, in a lot of ways, is, I don't want to say it's too late, but if you're looking to keep large hotels from dumping demands on the community that we can't currently fill in terms of housing, you know, better late than never. But you know, where you set that threshold is really important to me, is to not kill business and over-regulate the little guys. And I don't really see anything here, you know, that communicates to the little guys. And I think you're going to have a lot of people flooding into the planning and zoning office, really concerned, you know, or looking for information. So those are the comments that I have.
Any further?
I think you're right. We're definitely behind the 8 ball with those 500 extra rooms. If we had an assured housing policy already in place, that's 100, mitigating for 100, 20% of those rooms. And there's that complicated formula, but it was 20% of the staff that is required to man those rooms. So
better late than never.
Yeah, and I don't know that in this particular resolution that you can differentiate and say this won't affect these people, but it will affect these. I think you have to make a blanket one and then let the assured housing policy define who is going to be affected.
Yeah,
Yes?
I can understand that. I think just providing a reference to the data, that the recommendation from the company that we paid to provide a recommendation, and certainly isn't inappropriate, because this is just very broad, and really where you set that threshold is the difference between a horrible policy and a policy that makes sense. And that's my point.
Yeah.
Evan?
I agree that it's important to have a quality policy, and that I am a little hesitant to put like a hard number, since we are still refining the policy and it hasn't necessarily been adopted. And I see this as a good move to just kind of have it as a placeholder that just says, hey, we're working on this stuff. You know, it does specifically spell out that it's for lodging-related developments, and I wonder if there's a way that we can include some reference to that living document that is being refined, so that if it does kind of set off nerves, we can say, you know, visit www.whatever, and then they can reference kind of where it's at and what some of those potentials are.
Did you fill out a card, Randy, to speak to this?
He did not.
No, I didn't know I could. I will.
Do you mind?
You need some help.
Well, he's...
No.
I'm not apologizing.
You
Come on up,
don't
Randy.
need to fill it out, Andy. Just go ahead. No, that way I would have known to call on you. That's the only reason to do it.
Don't call on me?
No, yeah, because that way, if we
I
don't
didn't know I
know.
was gonna get him to spoil you, guy.
Should have been here at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
I was.
During
Dropped in and
citizens,
left and dropped in and left.
During
My phone
citizens-
keeps ringing.
during citizens to be heard, we always explain it.
Here I go again.
Is that your good side?
Good side ever.
Yeah, I got one good side and you ain't looking at it. Okay, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this. I've been watching this for 20 years. I've asked for zone changes for over 20 years. There's vacant property out there in the valley that should have been rezoned 20 years ago when I asked for it. I'm telling you, and I told this council and I told councils before, this is coming. It's here. And now you're going to make policy to punish one segment of the economy. Your only economy is that segment. That is exactly where you get your bread and butter. Back in the day when I came here, there were mining companies building subdivisions. Okay? They were building subdivisions. It's called UTEX, Steenville. And you can go through the books and there's a bunch of them. And it's not that I mind you saying, how do we catch up? Guys, you deal the cards. You are not putting your zoning in place where it will play. I don't care how many restrictions you put on these guys. And how many people you say, we want affordable housing? We all do. But you deal with cards. You have what's called zoning. Yet we take zoning and we put it in a specific area. And we say, that's where we want it. Really? Well, let me explain it to you. I don't own property in that area. I own property over in this area, and I will be glad to build affordable housing. Try to get a zone change in Grand County. That's a tough nut to crack. They just had one in the city where they wanted to build an apartment building. And because some local residents next door to this apartment building didn't want it, it didn't happen. So you really, as far as I can see, that told me they didn't really care about affordable housing. Where can I put an apartment building in Grand County? An apartment building, where can I put it? You guys know the zones, it's your deal. I'll walk to you and I'd say, show me where I can build it. And you're going to have a hard time finding something zoned for it. Promise. Oh, well, we got overlays. Well, what are the rules? Well, we'll tell you when we get there. You got to be kidding. And now you're going to put something out in the paper, and I promise, what you're talking about right now, no, it's going to be a lot worse than you think. I'm here because I caught wind of what was happening, so I'm here to tell you, not as an adversary, because I've fought this for years, so I'm used to it. I would have affordable housing built if I had the zone for it, I promise. What we need to do with zoning is you got a piece of property that's 15 acres or 6 acres or 10 acres, and the guy has it out here in the valley, and he says, we got roads, we got infrastructure, and I'll build what I need, but I want to put it here. Oh no, it's zoned G1. It's zoned residential, 1 acre lots. Why? Well, we like the rural fitting. Sorry, that's gone. That's Castle Valley, Utah. It's not this valley. And it's not going to be. And we can put the hammer down, and what you're going to do is slow supply. Because what I do is if you tell me you got 180 days to make up your mind what regulation I'm going to get hit with, I'm done. There's no way I can calculate that in my numbers. No lending institution will allow me to do that, I promise. They just don't. If I tell you I'm going to sell you a car, oh, and by the way, you got 180 days to drive it, then I'll tell you the price. Go ahead and get ready to buy it, but I'm going to tell you the price later. That's how that feels to me. I understand what you're trying to do, and I get that part. But you've got all of the cards, and you get to deal them face up. So you can give you that zoning, and you that zoning. I'm going to put that zoning over here. And if 5 people come out and say, no, you take that card from him, because you're giving him too much. No, wait. You're not giving him anything that isn't his right to have. That's his land. It's his right. He should be able to build apartments if he wants to. Although, I was turned down in one setting, and that came from right behind this desk. I wanted to build a 3-story apartment building. You know what the reason finally came out? And it's in the record somewhere, I don't know where. I was taking away the solar gain of the neighbor. Now, I'm sure that's important to somebody in Ohio where they grow a lot of stuff, but we don't get that much out here, and we get a lot of solar gain. But that was the reasoning. I want you to really look at your zoning. Folks, I'm telling you, our pricing's crazy. I'm a real estate broker, and I've never seen it like this. Never. And this is just going to exasperate it. You're going to tell these guys that are providing jobs. In rural Utah, the governor's put out a mandate. He wants $25,000. I got a group right now looking for HUD financing to build because they're going to provide jobs through a hotel. So they're able to get the financing because of the governor. And on this side, we're fighting them, saying, no, you're going to build housing too. I'm not knocking that. I'm saying, okay, how many houses has BLM built since they've started? When I came here, there was 4 BLM officers in 72. I think they've grown a little bit since then. Okay. They haven't built 1 house. The city, they have a lot of employees. They didn't build any houses. Neither has the county. They employ a lot of people. Where's their houses? Where's the mandate to make them build houses? You keep growing. You just grew it. 2 more employees or 1 and maybe 2. And I'm not saying it doesn't need to happen. You see where I'm coming from? Let's put it across the board. Everybody. I'm okay paying my share. I'll do it. What I'm talking about is we cannot just protect 1 acre lots anymore here. You have got to get on your zoning. You've got great infrastructure right now. You're building a brand new toilet facility for this county. And San Juan, and I know that map behind you looks pretty vague and empty on that right-hand side. It's not going to be. There's many towns that have done exactly what we're doing, exasperating and stopping growth because they can't keep up. And I get that. But when those homes move out south and one big box store comes to San Juan County, I don't care who it is, what happens is we lose that. And I don't want to knock your motion, and I'm just speaking to the problem itself.
Yeah.
I want you to understand, Jen, you guys have the cards. Start dealing some cards,
Randy,
giving some zone changes.
Randy,
Has it been 3 minutes?
no, I have allowed you twice what we usually
Ma'am,
allow
I
people,
appreciate
so,
you. I want you to
have
understand the
6
gravity of
minutes.
this. This is huge for me.
So,
I see both ends. I see that I just got a call today when I was in this meeting, had to get up and leave, from a developer that says, I want to build another hotel. Are you serious? I tell them, I see the studies that come out. They say there's more room because of our marketing. You're still advertising Grand County. We are. Our county is advertising Grand County. And they keep coming and you wonder where the hell they're coming from.
I'm going to have to...
I understand, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please consider that before we start putting regulations. But let's talk about zoning. And I'll be glad to come and go over every zone and show you that what I'm thinking about. Because I've seen it for a long time. Thank you. Appreciate it, Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Hawk, thank you. Sorry. I'll fill out the card next time.
Yes.
So just a couple more brief comments. I think the primary issue that I have with this, the second to the bottom whereas, a recently completed Assured Housing Nexus analysis
Where are we
completed,
on page 1?
page 1, found that lodging-related development has a bona fide connection to the increase in demand for affordable below market rate housing. So these hotels continue to pop up in Moab because there's demand in the market for them. And as you know, the citizen noted, we're increasing the demand by promoting. It's not that a hotel pops up and all of a sudden the market grows. The hotel is a symptom or a complement to the market. And so, you know, this is drafting a resolution basically pointing the finger at hotels, and subsequently it's blaming them for the affordable housing problem. The problem I have with that is if a hotel couldn't find employees, they wouldn't be working, they wouldn't be in operation, they wouldn't be sustaining, and they wouldn't be making money. And so what they're doing to address their problem is they are taking it on, taking responsibility for that issue internally and providing housing because they have to, or working to help facilitate housing. If a hotel can't find employees, then they're not going to open up and they're not going to exist in Moab. And so really what this is affordable housing is a symptom of the tourism economy. That's been proven, that's fact. And so I do think it is, I don't agree to point the finger at the hotels. And you know, what you're doing is you're putting the issue on the backs of the hotels. And while I do think it is important for us to increase housing supply, asking the hotel industry to fill up a bank account and payment in lieu of development for affordable housing, you know, to mirror what the citizen said, where are all the other industries in that? And where are all the other industries and sectors ponying up the cash to fill that account? And if you're going to say, well, hopefully you set the formula so that the hotel doesn't make the payment in lieu of development, they build the house, why are we getting involved in that? Because if they needed a house to run the hotel, they're going to do it. And if you know the hoteliers in this community, they are doing that. They are buying land, they are bringing in airstreams, they are buying houses, they are building high-density units to have employees because they have to. If someone doesn't show up to work to collect the money for the hotel, the business doesn't function. So as we move forward into the policy, you know, I do think it is good to acknowledge that and be candid about that, because I think that's fair, you know, because the primary reason we've built up the savings account we have is because of TRT money that's collected by hoteliers and lodging accommodations. And what you're doing with this policy is you're putting the problem on their back. And I think the business community and the citizens ought to have conscious acknowledgement of that from this board. And if you're going to do that, what are the other solutions in the resolution that I put on the agenda at the last meeting to look at areas where we can drive housing and enable housing developments? It gets picked apart like Swiss cheese. And we had a developer come in and propose a project, and everybody was doing everything they could to hide from it for reasons I don't understand. And so I think an honest assessment of the problem is necessary. These kind of policies are in existence, but the areas where these policies are in existence, if you think the land values are high here, check Telluride, check Jackson Hole. Double, triple times this. Park City. When a hotelier comes in to develop a hotel in that community, housing is absolutely a line item. They will pay for it, but it's important to remember that part of a feasibility analysis by a business to open up a new hotel, new restaurant, or whatever widget you're selling, being able to staff the business is just as important as being able to cash flow the business. So we're not doing the hotels any favors here. What we're doing is we're asking them to pay for the economy's problem, not the problem they're creating.
I'd just like to point out that we heavily subsidize. Hotels don't even have to advertise because we do that for them. And so they're getting some benefits, and I would like to call the vote.
And I would like to also comment that a lot of the places that are hiring are paying wages that the people are a lot more comparable than wages that people that work in hotels make. So, okay, we're calling for a vote.
May I just make a comment? The motion was not made to include pending legal review, but we did not get legal review back.
So would you
wait for legal review?
Amend that motion to say pending legal review? Or what would you like to do?
Pending legal review, but still, assuming we get the legal review, it would still be.
You're amending your motion to include pending legal review. Okay. Any further discussion?
I would just highlight that in my mind it's more of a courtesy to say, hey, heads up, we're looking at the land use code. This resolution is not the land use code.
It's just saying,
there's obviously still a lot of debate to go around with the land use code. And so that's where I'm at with it.
It's nice to have the heads up. Okay. Any further? Okay. All in favor of the resolution pending legal review? All opposed? Motion fails, 3-2.
Do you want to say that?
The three in favor: Jaylen Hawks, Evan Clapper, Mary McGann. Opposed: Greg Halliday and Curtis Wells. Thank you. We are now at the approving proposed amendment 5. No, we're not. We're appointing an individual to serve on the Emergency Medical Service Special Service District Board with term ending December 31st, 2020.
Yes, we had a spot for an open citizen, and we had one applicant, one that we're all very familiar with. She's competent, level-headed. She brings a lot of skills that are needed, familiarity with a lot of procedural and code, not to mention familiarity with the backside of EMS and those demands that it puts on family. And with that, I'd like to submit, sorry, my laptop died.
Motion to approve
Bryony Hill
to the EMS Special Service District Board with term ending December 31st, 2020, and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
Second.
Okay, motion by Curtis Wells, seconded by Evan Clapper. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, approving proposed amend 5-year lease renewal agreement with the State Administrative Office of the Courts of 7th District and Juvenile Courts. Ruth Dellen.
Yes, if you all like and need, I can get the gentleman from the state on the line. He is Alan Lunsford, State Court Facilities Director. He and I have negotiated this, and it is a 5-year renewal that is about to expire at the end of this month. It is for use of leasing office and courtroom space for 7th District and juvenile courts. We negotiated a 3.5% increase per year, minus there's an optional annual discount that's associated with the public treasurer's investment fund amount. That used to be a straight 3%, but when the interest rates dropped, we're tying it to the PTIF rate for that amount. What that gives us is the county can then take the lump sum, that's in exchange for a lump sum payment instead of monthly payments. And we take that lump sum payment and can invest it. While that space is worth a lot, you should know that the state does put money into major improvements. The last several years they put in over $35,000. The lease rate comes to $13.65 a square foot a year. That compares to something that this same gentleman recently negotiated a block away from here for standard commercial office space for the Guardian ad litem at $10.50 per square foot per year. So it's in line that way. It's not at all in line with, what commercial would have to pay. That would be probably $16,000 or something. It's how many square feet is it? I've forgotten now how many square feet it is. But yeah, it could be more like $16,000 a month. So this is what is for you. The state legislature does have a philosophy that when it's government to government, it should be no harm and it should be more of a cost pass-through. So the increase is just to be sure we have enough for maintenance and janitorial increases, things like that. So. Questions?
Questions? Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the proposed amended 5-year lease renewal agreement with the State Administrative Office of the Courts for 7th District and juvenile courts at a rate of $13.65 per square foot per year, minus an optional discount tied to the public treasurer's investment fund interest rate in exchange for annual lump sum payments, and authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
Motion by Jalen Hawks, seconded by Greg Halliday. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Passes 5-0. Okay, item R, approving council assignment change for Grand Area Watershed Partnership. Councilman McGann. Jaylyn is on that. She has taken over the very difficult, the time-consuming job of the budget advisory. In a sense, the Moab Area Watershed Partnership goes hand in hand with the Grand County Conservation District, so it makes more sense that this person that's doing the Conservation District is also doing the watershed. So I said I would take that over. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded. Motion by Curtis Wells, seconded by Jalen Hawks. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Consent agenda. Yes.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, starting item S, ratifying the chair's signature on Sitla license agreement right of entry number 6558 for the purpose of conducting a 4th of July fireworks display on Sitla property near Lionsback. Item T, ratifying the chair's signature on a letter of support sent to Congressman John Curtis regarding his proposed Rural Broadband Permitting Efficiency Act of 2018. Item U, approving proposed letter to U.S. Forest Service to close out the expired 2011 General Memorandum of Understanding between Grand County and Manti LaSalle National Forest. Approving Chair's unsworn declaration on statement of water users claim for number 1, water right number 5-237, number 2, water right number .5-238, W, approving fiscal year 2019 beer tax plan.
Do I have a second? Oh, you seconded. Motion by Curtis Wells, seconded by Jalen Hawks. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda items? Motion passes 5-0.
And if you didn't see it on the dice is the letter to the forcers.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you. Discussion on calendar items and public notices.
Oh, that would be me. Bryony had to leave early. Let's see, quickly, so this Thursday is that BLM Grand County Coordination Meeting. We got it on there, 1:30 at the Moab Field Office. So that's on the 7th. On June 19th at 5:30, during our regular meeting, we're scheduling the joint City-County Council meeting. We do have some public hearings that would start 6 o'clock or later, but so if you all have topics for that joint meeting, I would need to know. I know we'll be talking about the assured housing and also some partial funding along with some other agencies for the Moab Area Watershed Coordinator. I'm not sure if I have that title correct.
So on that, real quick, the mayor mentioned to me that the city is really pushing to have a housing-only agenda for that joint meeting. So you should get in touch with her and work that out, because they want to just base it just around housing and nothing else. So.
Oh, we better talk to them, because that's not what we sent out.
Which meeting was that? 19?
Yeah, it's during our regular meeting. Yeah, 5:30.
We were going to start our meeting early, correct?
Well, we did talk about that, yeah.
We talked about, we were
Depending
going
on
to
the
look at
size.
what the size of the agenda was. And if it
Right.
looked like we needed to start at 3:30 or 3, we would do that. But if the agenda looked shorter, we would start.
I'm actually unable to attend, so just FYI.
Thanks
Okay,
for
so
that.
we'll get that cleared out and get some email out to you guys so you know. And then we have primary election day on the 26th.
When do we get our ballots?
They'll be in the mail this week.
Okay.
June 20.
Is everybody gonna get a packet, or is it just the ones that are voting on the primary?
Everybody get one.
We have a county-wide primary race in the county attorney's office, so everyone will.
Okay.
I think that's the only one on, unless you're Republican, correct?
Okay, June 28th, Canyon Country Partnership, CCP, going to be in either Huntington or Castledale. 1:30 that same day, the 28th, is the Performance Review Committee meeting. Any takers? That is a Thursday.
I volunteered for that this last time, and it either got canceled or I spaced it. I'm not sure if it got canceled.
It did not get canceled.
So I should be signed up for the next one.
Okay, thank you.
What's the date of that?
The 28th, 1:30
Of June?
of June, yes.
Yeah, so pencil me into that.
Thank you, will do. And that's here in this council chambers. Anything else for June for anyone? July, of course, we have the 4th of July.
Oh, one.
Okay.
The 20th, have a museum board meeting at 5:30.
That's the June 20th,
Yes.
5:30 museum. board.
Ruth,
Oh,
what time was that performance review? Sorry.
1:30, the 28th. Okay, good. We'll try to get that on the repeating calendars. I think we forgot to do that. I just want to reiterate that for the 4th of July, we are having the fireworks. I'm talking about the professional display. We are still looking for crew members and having them directly call the purveyor. Background checks required. So if you all know of anybody, I've done it and I recommend it. You get to see and hear the fireworks from a whole different perspective. It is amazing. It's totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Do you know if you can bring a guest? Because you gotta be over 16 or over 18 or something.
You all could call and we can get you the phone number. I do not know the answer. I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I mean, there are little fires that have to be put out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, moving right along. July 13th through the 16th is the National Association of Counties Annual Convention in Nashville. Any takers?
When is that?
National Association of Counties
No, when?
Convention. Oh, sorry, July 13th, beginning that for 3 or 4 days.
So I'm going.
You're going to go?
But I was given a notice that I'm on a short list to get appointed to the NACO Board of Directors. So if they do that, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, then they're going to pay for my travel.
Oh, excellent.
So hopefully that happens.
My mother lives in Nashville.
Yeah.
Let us know.
You know the honky tonk?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll go then.
Yeah, Roberts. Yeah.
Was there some
She
other
loves
board
showing
you needed
people
to
around.
announce?
Yeah, I was appointed to the Governor's Rural Partnership Board last week, which is it's a good board. Mayor Dave held the board seat previously, and they've played a large role in the 25K process. And so it's a good thing. So I hope to contribute through that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. Okay, let's
Glad
see.
you're there.
Thank you.
And then we have a second holiday in July, as you know, Pioneer Day, the 24th, so the county offices are closed.
County offices.
And then one more thing, we do have 5 Tuesdays in July, so if needed, we have an opportunity for a council administrative workshop at 9 o'clock that day. That's all I got. Anybody have anything else for July?
Judd's got something.
Yes.
Well, when you're done with this, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm almost through with this, thank you. So that's it for the calendars. Special events, there's a pending one called Vision Relay coming up June 8th and 9th, and nothing in July. Employment opportunities, you can see a full page there with closing dates. Prosecutorial assistant, EMT basic, EMT paramedic, those are both part-time. They're closing at the end of July. Assistant food service manager in the jail is still there at the end of July. Correction officer end of July. Patrol deputy end of July. Communications and dispatch end of July. Old Spanish Trail Arena facilities maintenance tech, that was our water person for the ball fields. We have been trying to fill that for a while. Don't have it yet. And then UMTRA liaison, technical inspector, who is retiring, and that closes the end of July. We do have some possible applicants for that.
We do?
I think so.
I think,
and we're still working on the planning and zoning administrator. I mentioned that earlier.
So
we're having July, when's the UMTRA meeting? July. We have that. I think we're having it on the 25th, right?
What's the question?
When tailings advisory board meeting. We normally have it on Tuesday, but I think Tuesday felt that we couldn't have it. It's not on here.
Which month are you looking?
July. I think I'm on July.
So we're looking for the tailings committee meeting?
Mm-hmm.
I see it on the 31st, 3 o'clock?
On the 31st at 3 o'clock. I know somebody's planning on bringing a cake, and we will probably do something at the Tailings Project Steering Committee to honor Lee Shenton. So if anyone, it'd be nice to show up. I mean, he's done an amazing job for the county, not just with the UMTRA project, but with other things that he has watched out for. So I will give you a reminder before then. But we're planning on doing that. His last day happens to be the July Tailings Removal Project Steering Committee.
Thank you for that. And I was planning to be on vacation starting tomorrow and missed the June 19th meeting, but instead everything's delayed. So I will be here for the next council meeting and will likely miss the July 3rd meeting. So anyway, I'll keep you informed on that. Did you have something about calendar items, Joe?
I did.
Thank you.
I just sat here and listened to all of these. 80% of it, what you just said, I think would be really useful for the citizens to hear. I think it's great that you moved your department reports to the beginning. I really think this should be right behind it. I mean, you just listed a bunch of jobs that we need to fill in this county. We're not even press here anymore. You just mentioned honoring a long-time county employee. Information on the ballots going out.
And plus then they would.
Joint city meeting 2 times, the county's gonna be closed. The fireworks were for staff, not county, it's the county staff. Some serious things on the government for Curtis, the stuff that's gonna help the county. I mean, obviously, Brian, unless you benefit by it being earlier in the agenda, but I think almost everything you just said, I think the citizens should hear.
Yeah.
And plus, just the fact that I don't think the citizens recognize what we're doing, a lot of them, except for the council reports help, but still hearing everything that we're going to.
Yeah, I mean, it's one where, I mean, all of a sudden.
Well, maybe we'll put that on the
So
next-
moved, Judd.
Also, I'm gonna be joining in the Idaho 4-hour, 2-hour meeting with BLM today about the next phase of the airport development, and I'm going to be joining on Thursday. So, I haven't had a chance to do it yet, but I just think that a lot of that stuff would be great for, we're looking for all these people, someone here might have a friend who's looking for one of those jobs.
Okay, well, we have to put it on the agenda to change the agenda schedule if we can discuss that.
But I just think this hand in hand with the department reports, I'm glad those are on the beginning. A lot of what you guys do, they don't see.
Thank you.
Noted.
Okay, we are at the end. We do have a closed session. I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
For what?
Employment of security personnel devices or systems.
Okay.
Oh, that was.
Seconded.
You were
Okay,
genuinely.
motion by Curtis Wells, seconded by Jalen Hawks to go into closed session. The time is 7:00. Did you get a vote? Oh, all in favor? All in favor? We don't have any water. Sorry, was that all?
Here, I'll hook it up. I was going to
I've
do
been
that
going,
during the meeting.
I've been dying here. That's why I don't need to go to the restroom. I haven't been hydrating.
Oh, let's see, yeah, this is not recorded.
And I made a move.
We need to turn off our,
It'll evaporate by the time.
we need to turn off our lights, correct?
I wanted to do that during the meeting, but I thought it would be too distracting. Don't want
We were out right at the beginning of the meeting.
Is this a non-recorded?